Chapter 1303. Special Bracelet, what else? The person who asked the question frowned. This range was too wide. There were many good-looking couples in the world. What was the use of saying this? Also, Liangzi pondered for a moment. By the way, the wife was wearing a very special silver bracelet on her wrist. There's a leaf on one side of the bracelet and a small bead on the other. Coincidentally, the small bead could be pressed into the leaf with a light clasp. That child especially liked to grab this bracelet with his hand, so I have some impression. Yundong, who was not far away, hurriedly asked someone to bring a brush and paper over. She drew the bracelet according to Liangzi's words. The bracelet was a little strange, but Yundong still handed the drawing to the person who asked. Liangzi looked at the picture and then at the corner. He smiled. There seems to be something missing. He thought for a while and suddenly frowned. Oh right, there were 3 different colored tassels in the middle. The child must have seen that and went to catch it. Yundong was speechless. She suspected that Liangzi was lying. However, she still drew the tassels on the original bracelet. This time, the bracelet was even stranger. This time, Liangzi nodded. That's about it. Yundong looked at the drawing on the paper and exchanged glances with Qingyuan. The guy had already asked enough questions and knew that they had met the couple on that street. Moreover, if what Liangzi said was true, that couple must have doted on Qingyuan a lot. Yundong was willing to believe that. The 3 of them walked out of the cell. Kong asked curiously, "Do you think what he said is true? Could he be lying to us? When you torture him again, just say that he lied and beat him up to see if he will change his confession," Qingyuan suggested. Kong couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. How ruthless. It's fine. Compared to him, I'm already considered kind. Kong thought about it and felt that it made sense. With Liangzi's evil deeds, it wouldn't be too much to punish him a few times physically. Besides, compared to Liangzi, Qingyuan was a victim. He had been stolen by Liangzi. After taking a few steps, Yundong suddenly reminded Kong, "I see that Liangzi has been lying motionless on the straw pile. Is there something wrong?" Kong was stunned. "You suspect that he dug a hole down there?" He instantly stopped in his tracks. "I'll go back and take a look." Then, he hurriedly walked into the cell. After a while, he came out again with a relaxed smile on his face. He waved at Yundong. "It's okay. He can't escape. But you're right. The guard said that he did dig a hole." However, digging a hole was useless. This cell was different from ordinary cells. You could not dig out at all. No wonder General Dou reattached Liangzi's limbs without hesitation. Yundong stopped paying attention and went to a silver shop with Qingyuan. He got someone to make a silver bracelet according to the blueprint. The boss of the silver shop asked them to come and collect it 2 days later. He guaranteed that it would be exactly the same as the drawing on the blueprint. Even if it was different, it could be changed. Only then did Yundong and Qingyuan leave. 2 days later, they obtained the silver bracelet from the silver shop. How should she put it? Although it was a little strange when drawn, it was fun after it was made. Yundong held the silver bracelet in her hand and turned to look at Qingyuan. The latter also looked at the bracelet, and something flickered in his eyes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1304. Liangzi is dead, Brother Shao. Your mother must have doted on you. The bracelet was not pretty, but its color attracted the attention of children. Perhaps Big Brother Shao's mother had specially given him such a silver bracelet. Qingyuan's gaze was complicated. He took the bracelet and remained silent for a long time. After a long time he said, "Let's set off for the capital tomorrow." Yundong's eyes lit up. This was the first time Qingyuan had taken the initiative to look for his parents. She felt that the confusion in his heart had disappeared. Yundong grabbed his hand and nodded heavily. "All right, we'll leave tomorrow. Let's go back first and buy a ship ticket at the docks." The 2 of them seemed to instantly be in a good mood. The gloominess in their hearts dissipated bit by bit, and even their footsteps became very light. They went to the docks to reserve a passenger ship. They had already talked to the person in charge here beforehand. Moreover, they had come with Kong at that time and asked about the price, the time to leave the ship, and some things to take note of. Now that they had come again, it was not so troublesome. They quickly decided on the time to come to the docks tomorrow and paid the deposit on the spot. The person in charge knew that they were related to young Master Do, so he did not dare to cheat them. In addition, the two of them were generous and rewarded them with silver. Therefore, he added a few more words to remind them to prepare the medicine and food for seasickness. Before Yundong and the rest left, he even gave her a simple map of the river that he had drawn. On it, he marked where the ship would pass, when it would dock, and how long it would be suitable for resupply. It was extremely thoughtful. Yundong went back and began to prepare. Then, she heard a piece of news not long after. Liangzi is dead? It was obvious that that person had a strong desire to live. Why did he suddenly die? Qingyuan nodded. He was poisoned to death. Yundong could not understand. Under General Do's watch, could anyone sneak in and poison the beam? Unless, Qingyuan said, it was the prison head who poisoned him. The prison head's son was kidnapped by Liangzi and the others many years ago and was later killed. When the prison head heard Liangzi's confession, he had hatred in his heart. Now that General Do was almost done with the torture, Liangzi no longer had any useful value. When he was delivering food to Liangzi, he poisoned the food and personally avenged his son. Yundong sighed when he heard this. This was probably what it meant to commit evil and bring about self-destruction. What about Mrs. Zhua? Mrs. Zhua is in the women's prison. The prison head can't get in touch with her, so he didn't have the chance to do anything. However, the prison head also said that Liangzi looks even more dangerous. He was afraid that the man would escape when he was sent to be beheaded, so he couldn't wait to do it. Yundong was speechless. Very good, this reason was very good. By the way, Duan Qian knew that we were leaving and specially invited us to the residence tonight. He also invited Do Fukong. All right, we'll go in a while. I have something to tell Duan Wan. The two of them changed their clothes and brought Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao to the Duan residence. When she entered the hall, she saw that Do Fukong was already there and talking to Duan Qian. Upon seeing them, Duan Qian immediately stood up and greeted them. You're here. Sit here. Duan Wan quickly came over and pulled Yundong aside to talk. Unexpectedly, the first thing she said was a heavy bomb. Yundong was shocked. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1305. The End of Second Master Duan's Family. Duan Wan married Old Master Zhang, Duan Wan said. Yundong's hand, which had just picked up the pastry, froze. After a while she asked softly, Really? Yes, my big brother did it. I feel especially relieved now. This was really giving Duan Wan a taste of her own medicine. Duan Qian returned everything that Second Master Duan had done to Duan Wan. Yundong had been paying attention to Mrs. Zhua these days. Later on, she was very concerned about Shao Qingyuan's background and did not pay attention to the Duan family. She did not expect Duan Qian to make such a big move in just a few days. Is Duan Wan willing to marry him? Duan Wan pursed her lips. Of course not, but what's the use of her not being willing? As long as second uncle and second aunt agree, she has no choice but to marry. It's her parents' order to matchmake, so how can Duan Wan have the right to object? Besides, my brother directly cut off Duan Wan's monthly allowance and removed the maids beside her. There's not even a servant in her courtyard to serve her. There's no one to cook, clean, or serve her. It's just 2 days. She couldn't take it anymore after 2 days and cried and agreed to marry Old Master Zhang. Although Old Master Zhang was old and had many concubines, and the Zhang family was not as rich as the Duan family, at least she would have food, drinks, and people to serve her. Moreover, her parents had agreed because of Duan Qian's methods, and no one supported her. It was useless even if she resisted. After that, Duan Wan married into the Zhang residence. But Yundong did not need to think to know that Duan Qian would definitely focus on suppressing the Zhang residents in the coming days. Back then, Old Master Zhang had also participated in the incident that destroyed Duan Wan's innocence. How could Duan Qian let him off? What about Second Master Duan and his wife? My brother sent them back to the hometown. The Duan family's hometown was in the countryside and was very remote. There was naturally no one to serve Second Master Duan and his wife. From now on, They would have to earn money and spend whatever they earned to eat and drink. The two of them were used to living a comfortable life. In the future they would have to do everything themselves. One could imagine how bitter their lives would be. Especially in front of Mrs. Zhua, the two of them had fallen out and fought on the spot. That incident was like a thorn between the husband and wife, and it would stir up trouble from time to time. The two of them would probably have a lively life in the future. Where's second young Master Duan? Duan sighed. Second young Master Duan was still young and did not know about these things from the beginning to the end. After knowing what his parents and sister had done, he was greatly shocked and locked himself up in the house for a few days. When he came out, he asked to go to the countryside with his parents. However, second Master Duan and his wife did not agree. The two of them still doted on their only son. They begged Duan Qian to let second Master Duan off and let him continue to stay in the Duan family and study. Duan Qian actually had a good relationship with his cousin. The other party was only 12 or 13 years old and did not have any bad intentions. He was just a little playful and did not care about many things in the family. Therefore, Duan Qian agreed to let his cousin stay in the prefectural city. However, he had set up another courtyard for him to stay in so that he could study in peace. If the cousin became capable in the future and wanted to bring his parents back, Duan Qian would not object. Gu Yundong did not comment on Duan Qian's way of handling the matter. She believed that after this incident, Duan Qian would definitely be more cautious. Gu Yundong avoided this topic and was about to tell Duan Wan about the shop. Unexpectedly, Duan Wan suddenly blushed and whispered something into her ear. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1306. Duan Wan is engaged. Gu Yundong choked on his own saliva. Ahem, what did you just say? Duan Wan pushed her. Don't pretend you didn't hear me. I just feel very surprised. Gu Yundong blinked and silently turned his head to look at Do Fukong, who was sitting not far away. This guy actually came to the Duan residence to propose marriage, and he even proposed to Duan Wan? Duan Wan saw her looking over so blatantly and hurriedly turned her face back. Don't look around. I don't want to look around either. I couldn't help it, right? Gu Yundong retracted her gaze and nudged her gently. She asked, what did he say? He just thinks I'm great. Gu Yundong was speechless. Just like that. However, looking at Duan Wan's expression, it wasn't like she didn't have feelings for Do Fukong. That's right. Do Fukong was a handsome man. He was talented in both civil and military matters. He was also warm-hearted and loyal. Although he had married a wife before, that wife had passed away in a year due to poor health. However, for a family like the Do family, even if he were to remarry, there would still be many people who would crush his doorstep. If Do Fukong wanted to marry Duan Wan, he would definitely be sincere. However, Gu Yundong was still a little worried. Have you understood the Do family situation? I've heard that the Do family is a military family. The Do family's people have straightforward tempers and there aren't many twists and turns. They also don't have as many rules as those aristocratic families. I heard that young Master Do's sister-in-law has even been to the battlefield before. Therefore, even though I'm a businesswoman, the Do family doesn't mind. Gu Yundong did not say anything else. Duan Qian should have considered these questions. She teased Duan Wan, then I'll congratulate you here, but I won't have the chance to attend your wedding. Shall I give you a gift in advance? What gift? Duan Wan was very curious. She was looking forward to it. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She said, I don't have one now. I didn't know that you had decided on it. Before I leave tomorrow, I'll get someone to hand it to you. You don't need to leave it to me. I'll send you to the dock tomorrow, Duan Wan said. Then she suddenly lowered her head and said disappointedly, I can't bear to see you go. Gu Yundong found it funny. She recalled their hostile gazes when they first met. Now it was rare for them to sit here and talk. She changed her mind and told her about the shop. Duan Wan had to prepare for her wedding and could not find time in a short period of time. However, Gu Yundong did not intend to let her open the shop now. After dinner, Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan returned to the provision store. They were now living in the backyard of the provision store. Knowing that they were leaving, Grandpa Yu and the rest could not bear to leave. At this moment, They began to busy themselves in the kitchen to prepare the food they needed to bring along on the way. Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, this was Grandpa Yu and the rest's kind intentions. She could not bear to let them down. The next morning, Grandpa Yu and Uncle Yu personally sent Yundong and the rest to the pier. Just as they were saying goodbye, Duan Qian and the other two came over. Yundong held a long box in her hand and stuffed it into Duan Wan's arms. "This is your wedding gift. Keep it well and look at it when you get back." "Okay." Duan Wan couldn't help but tear up. She didn't like this kind of parting scene. It wasn't easy for her to have such a close friend, but she didn't expect that her friend would leave after spending a few days with her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1307. Yundong's gift. Yundong patted her shoulder. "I'll visit you when I return from the capital. You have to receive us well then." "Definitely." Yundong then looked at Duan Qian and Dou Fukong. The two of them had finished talking to Shao Qingyuan. In the end she only said, "Take care. Have a safe trip." Yundong and Shao Qingyuan nodded at them and turned to walk towards the ship. Their carriage could not be transported over together. Although this passenger ship was big, the carriage took up too much space. Such a passenger ship would not allow guests to bring it over, so the carriage could only stay in Wanqing Prefecture for the time being. They had to let the Yu family take care of it. Therefore, they could only move the things on the carriage to the cabin of the passenger ship one by one. When Yundong and Shao Qingyuan talked to and Duan Wan and boarded the ship, Eugene and Shao Wen had already helped carry everything up. At this moment, Eugene jumped off the boat and said to Yundong, "Sister brother-in-law, the things have been placed. My grandfather's pancakes are in the rattan basket at the outermost corner. Don't forget to eat them later." "Of course, thank you." "You're welcome." Eugene stood beside his father and grandfather and waved at Yundong and the others. Yundong heaved a sigh of relief before turning around and entering the cabin with Shao Qingyuan. The cabins here were not big. There were many rooms. The cabin that Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were staying in was not bad. It was on the upper floor. Although it was small, it was clean. There were cabinets and windows in the room. Occasionally, sunlight would enter. There were 2 more floors under the cabin they were in. These 2 floors had no windows and the rooms were not big. Moreover, the bottom floor was almost filled with large bunks. It was a little messy and damp. Yundong opened the windows and saw Uncle Yu, Duan Wan, and the others still standing at the pier, as if they would not leave until the boat left. Duan Wan could not help but look at the long box in her hand. She quietly ran to the back of the carriage and opened the box. Then, she saw a scroll. Duan Wan was stunned. Jilan, who was beside her, was also curious. She took the box from Duan Wan's hand and asked, Mrs. Shao gave you a scroll. Could it be some famous painting?" She thought it would be jewelry or something. Duan Wan suddenly thought of the portraits of Mrs. Zhua and the others drawn by Yundong. Her eyes lit up and she eagerly opened the scroll. "Wow!" Jilan widened her eyes and exclaimed, "It's Miss and her future husband." Duan Wan also held her breath as she looked at the characters on the scroll. There were 2 people on it, a man and a woman in a red wedding dress with a happy smile on their faces. The man was Dou Fukong, and the woman was her. The portrait was very vivid, as if it was copied from their faces. The 2 of them were next to each other, and they actually looked like husband and wife. This time, Yundong had colored the portrait, so it looked even more lifelike. "That's right. You can hang this painting in your room after we get married in the future." A familiar voice suddenly came from behind. Duan Wan suddenly came back to her senses and saw Dou Fukong standing behind her. Her face immediately turned red. She hurriedly put away the portrait, rolled it up, and stuffed it into the box. Without looking up, she said, This was given to me by Yundong. Of course, I'll decide where to hang it." With that, she lowered her head and walked back to the dock. "I'll go thank Yundong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1308. Where did Tong Shuitao go? After saying that, Duan Wan quickly ran away. Dou Fukong, who was behind, smiled. I clearly heard her say that it was a wedding gift for the two of us. Then, he shook his head with a smile and followed her. When she reached the dock, she saw Duan waving at Gu Yundong and shouting, "Yundong, thank you." Duan's voice could not be heard because of the noise at the dock and the sound of the waves. Gu Yundong could only see the corners of her mouth moving. She seemed to have heard her name, so she raised her hand and waved. Gu Yundong only retracted her head from the window when she heard the whistle. She frowned and looked at Shao Qingyuan and Shao Wan, who were tidying up. Shuitao isn't back yet? Shao Wan stopped what he was doing. Seeing that it was getting late, he also became anxious. That's right. She said that she would definitely come back before the ship sailed, but I didn't see her even when the ship was about to sail. Did she say where she was going? Shao Qingyuan asked. Gu Yundong shook her head. She said that she was going out early in the morning. I thought that she might have some private matters to attend to, so I didn't ask further. I only told her to hurry back and not miss the boat. As they spoke, Gu Yundong felt the boat shake slightly. The boat had already begun to move. Gu Yundong suddenly stood up and hurried out of the cabin. As soon as she opened the door, she heard a familiar voice from afar. "Wait for me. Wait for me. Don't start the boat yet. I haven't come up yet." The corner of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She saw Tong Shuitao rush past the 3U family members and Duan like a gust of wind. She quickly ran towards the bow of the ship. The crew member who was tightening the rope was shocked and quickly stopped her. "Stop, stop. Don't be rash. You'll fall if you jump over directly." At this moment, the bow had already left the shore and the pedal had been removed. There was a long distance between them. However, Tong Shuitao did not seem to hear it. With a sudden help, she jumped heavily and flew onto the deck. The crew member closed his eyes and did not dare to look any longer. The rope in his hand fell to the deck with a thud. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan was quick-witted. He dragged the sack beside him and threw it over. Tong Shuitao fell onto the sack, so her face was not disfigured. "Ouch!" She cried out in pain. After lying there for a while, she slowly raised her head and happened to see Gu Yundong and the other two in front of her. She immediately grinned at them. However, halfway through her grinning, the captain came over angrily and said to her, "What's wrong with you? Do you know how dangerous it is to jump forward like this? If you don't jump onto the boat and fall into the river, you'll lose your innocence as a girl." Tong Shuitao shrunk her neck. She knew that the other party had good intentions and hurriedly got up. She said guiltily, "I won't do it again." The captain wanted to say something else, but the crew member tugged at his sleeve and pointed at Gu Yundong and the other two standing not far away, reminding him that this maidservant had a master. Only then did the captain shut his mouth. He exhaled and turned to leave. Gu Yundong pointed at Tong Shuitao. "Look at how capable you are. Aren't you afraid of falling? Come in with me." Tong Shuitao laughed dryly and hurriedly followed Gu Yundong in. Shao Wan, who was the last to enter, closed the cabin door. Gu Yundong asked, "Where did you go? Why did you come back so late? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1309. Rong's reminder. Tong Shuitao walked to Gu Yundong's side obsequiously and said in embarrassment, "I paid tributes to someone." Gu Yundong was stunned. "Tributes?" "Yes, Rong came to look for me before I came. He knew that we were going to pass by Wanqing Prefecture, so he asked me to visit his sister and tell her that he's doing well. He'll come and visit her again if he has the chance in the future." Gu Yundong suddenly remembered that she had bought Rong from the broker in Wanqing Prefecture. Previously, he was a servant in the Xian residence. His sister was killed by the eldest young master of the Xian residence. "You should have told me earlier. I could have gone to take a look." Gu Yundong rubbed her temples. Tong Shuitao scratched her head. "I wanted to tell Miss previously, but Rong told me not to say anything. He said that if Miss knew, she would definitely go and take a look. However, you are Miss, and Rong is a servant. He can't afford such good fortune." Gu Yundong was speechless. Tong Shuitao admitted her mistake. "I didn't notice. I exchanged a few more words with Sister Rong and told her that Rong is doing well in the Gu family. Now, he has learned a lot of knowledge from old master. Now, He speaks like a decent man. I couldn't hold back my words, so I came late. All right, just be careful next time. Also, if you encounter such a situation, don't jump up without a care. Yes, miss. I won't do it again. Only then did Yundong stop blaming her. The few of them unpacked their things for a while. They rented 3 rooms. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan's rooms were in the middle, Tong Shuitao's on the left, and Shao Wen's on the right. Tong Shuitao and her husband packed up their things and moved some pots and pans to their rooms. In an instant, Yundong and Shao Qingyuan room became open and bright. Yundong took out a clean blanket from the box and laid it on the bed. Only then did she sit comfortably by the window and look at the scenery. Unexpectedly, as soon as she opened the window, she saw Tong Shuitao waving at her from the other side. Miss, this is my first time taking a boat. Yundong had been on a boat before, but this was also her first time in this world. It had to be said that this boat was actually sailing quite quickly. The water was very clear, but the wind was a little strong. Shao Qingyuan brought a cloak over and covered half of her head with the hat. Don't catch a cold. There will be a lot of days on the ship in the future. There's no hurry. I've asked around. When we pass by Heading Prefecture, there will be osmanthus trees planted on both sides of the shore. This is the time when the osmanthus flowers bloom. There's fragrance all the way. There are also osmanthus flowers floating on the river. It looks like a paradise. Why had she not heard of this? Yundong's interest was piqued. Just imagining that scene made her look forward to it. Indeed, this was the honeymoon trip she had imagined. After staring at the river for a while, Yundong closed half of the window and rested for a while in the cabin. In the afternoon, they ate the food given by Uncle Yu. Yundong smeared the hot sauce on the food. It tasted extremely good. It was just that Uncle Yu had given them a little too many pancakes. They had to finish the pancakes before they could eat anything else. At night, Tong Shuitao borrowed the kitchen on the boat to make some porridge and continued to eat the pancakes before sleeping. Yundong had thought that everything would go smoothly, but unexpectedly, when she woke up the next day, she realized that Tong Shuitao was actually seasick. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:10. I'm really trash. Yundong looked at Tong Shuitao, who was lying on the bed listlessly. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She was clearly quite happy and excited yesterday. She said that it was her first time taking a boat and that she had even walked through all the public places on the boat in the afternoon. Unexpectedly, after only one night, she could not get up. Shao Qingyuan gave her a seasickness pill. Only then did she feel much better. But she only felt a little better. It was impossible for her to do anything. Tong Shuitao was crying. Miss, I've let you down. Originally, I should be the one taking care of you when you bring me to the capital. Now I can't do anything. You have to do everything yourself. I'm really useless. Really useless. All right. All right. This is not something you can control. Yundong saw that she wanted to kill herself to apologize and quickly stopped her. Rest first. Don't let your imagination run wild. It will get better. Tong Shuitao lay on the bed, still feeling terrible. Before she left, she had promised Master and Madam that she would take good care of Mississippi. She was clearly stronger than a man. How could she get seasick when she was so healthy? This was too unreasonable. Tong Shuitao was still indignant and asked Shao Qingyuan for a few more seasickness pills. However, how could she take too much medicine? Shao Qingyuan only gave her enough dosage for a day and was unwilling to give her too much. After a day like this, Tong Shuitao's symptoms did not lessen. Instead, it made the young miss and her husband feel uneasy. Therefore, she could only give up and lie on the bed. After finishing the pancakes given by Uncle Yu, Yundong began to cook. Originally, these things were done by Tong Shuitao. Now that she couldn't get up and Shao Qingyuan only knew how to cook porridge, the taste of Shao Wen's food could only be considered passable. Yundong did not want to suffer. Coincidentally, she had nothing to do on the ship all day, so she simply cooked by herself. There were 3 kitchens on the ship. The bigger ones were used by the crew to cook, and the ship actually provided food. However, the taste of the food cooked in a pot could be imagined. In addition, there were limited ingredients on the ship, so those who were qualified would cook themselves. The other 2 small kitchens were prepared for these people. However, the small kitchens were really small. Moreover, everybody could only use charcoal to start the fire. The stove also used charcoal. Yundong had bought 2 large bags of charcoal before she boarded the ship. It should be enough to start a fire and cook. If it was not enough, she could only buy more on the way. The conditions on the ship were limited, but this was already not bad. Yundong had prepared a lot of fresh food. That day, she used a small pot to stir-fry 2 dishes on the stove. She was willing to add oil and seasonings. As soon as she started cooking, the fragrance spread. Someone smelled the fragrance and came over. He swallowed his saliva as he looked at her dishes. There was also someone from a good family who wanted to spend money to buy food from Yundong. Yundong cooked to treat herself well, and she did not have the energy to take care of others. Moreover, Qingyuan did not allow her to tire herself out. Actually, if Yundong did not want to eat good food, Qingyuan would have asked Shao when to cook or buy food from the ship. Hence, he turned down all requests to buy food from Yundong. After 2 comfortable days, Yundong finally saw the heading prefecture, which was filled with the fragrance of osmanthus flowers. The ship would be docked here for 4 hours. The ship would be resupplied, so everyone could get off the ship to move around. Of course, some people would get off the ship and some other guests would board. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:11. Sleepy Yundong also got off the ship and specially asked Tong Shuitao to get off and walk around. After Tong Shuitao's legs landed on the ground, she finally felt much more comfortable. Once she left, she could not bear to get on the boat. After Yundong bought something nearby, she stood at the dock and waited until the boat was about to sail before getting on. Yundong ignored her and got on the boat to put the things away. Qingyuan and Shao walked further away from the dock to buy other things in the city. Therefore, just like Tong Shuitao, they returned when the ship was about to sail. Tong Shuitao's expression was a little strange when she returned. She first glanced at her, then at Qingyuan, and then at her. Then, she returned to her cabin. Yundong was speechless. What the hell? She turned around and returned to the cabin. She asked Qingyuan, "What's wrong with her?" Qingyuan shook his head. "Who? Shuitao. That girl just now looked like she had something to say to you." Qingyuan didn't pay attention. "I don't know. Maybe he wants a few more seasickness pills." Yundong thought about it and agreed. She had finally recovered after resting for 4 hours. Once she boarded the ship, she would be beaten back to her original state. She must be very indignant. However, there was no need to discuss this matter. She could not take medicine recklessly. She quickly retracted her attention and saw Qingyuan open a bag in his hand and take out the things inside. The osmanthus in the heading prefecture is famous, so there are many things made from osmanthus. This is the osmanthus cake bought from the most famous shop in the prefectural city. Try it. Also, this is osmanthus tea. Drink it when you want it. This hairpin is decorated with osmanthus flowers. It's very exquisite. I'll put it on for you. Qingyuan laid out everything. Apart from these, there was also an osmanthus sachet, dried osmanthus honey, and a pile of other things. Yundong found it funny. Seeing him stick the hairpin in her hair, she could not help but reach out and hug his waist. She looked up at him. "Why did you buy all of them for me? Didn't you buy anything for yourself?" Moreover, they were all on the docks. "Is there a reward?" Yundong laughed and leaned forward to kiss him. Qingyuan grabbed her by the waist and she could not move. The 2 of them only let go after a long time. Their faces were a little red. Yundong smelled the fragrance of osmanthus in the room and felt a little sleepy. The boat shook. Yundong came back to her senses and knew that the boat had sailed. She adjusted the hairpin in her hair and gathered all those things. Other than the osmanthus flowers, Qingyuan also bought some vegetables and necessities, which were quite heavy. Fortunately, he still had the energy to go elsewhere to buy so many things. Yundong took out a bag of pork ribs and smiled. "Just nice, these pork ribs will be used to stew radishes tonight." She had seen them near the docks before. There were ribs, but they didn't look very good, so she didn't buy them. She didn't expect him to bring a bag over. Qingyuan hugged her. "I'll help you. No need. The kitchen is very small. I can't even turn around if a man like you squeezes in." Yundong refused and left with the pork ribs. As soon as she went out, she realized that Tong Shuitao had also opened the cabin door. Yundong glanced at her. "You're not seasick anymore?" It would have been better if she hadn't said anything, but the moment she did, Tong Shuitao felt uncomfortable. "Dizzy. Then why don't you lie in your room? Why did you come out?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:12. A woman follows young Master Tong Shuitao swayed, but still came over and pulled Yundong into her cabin. "Miss, I thought about it and felt that I should tell you." "What are you talking about? You look so mysterious." Yundong sat on the edge of the bed and raised her eyebrows. Tong Shuitao lowered her voice. "Miss, when I boarded the ship just now, I saw a woman following behind young Master. You don't know, but the way that woman looked at young Master, that affectionate and loyal expression. Don't use random idioms. Speak properly." "Oh." Tong Shuitao quickly stopped and continued. "In short, it's obvious that that woman has ill intentions towards young Master. She insisted on following him. She's very shameless." Yundong asked, "What about Brother Shao?" "As for young Master, I don't know if young Master heard her, but he walked very quickly and left that woman behind in an instant." Tong Shuitao was especially proud when she said this. "Actually, I think with Miss around, young Master won't fancy other women." Yundong smiled. "In that case, what's there to be conflicted about? Even though young Master has young Miss, he can't stop women from pestering him. Some people don't care about being young Master's concubine at all and insist on clinging to him. Therefore, young Miss, we have to guard him tightly. We have to keep an eye on young Master at all times to see if any women appear around him. For example, just now, after young Miss and young Master disembarked from the ship, you went to different places, and young Master was immediately targeted by women. Keeping an eye on Brother Shao at all times?" Yundong felt suffocated at the thought of this. Seeing Tong Shuitao's serious expression, Yundong did not know what to say. Tong Shuitao said, "Miss, don't take it lightly. In the past, I also felt that this kind of thing wouldn't happen to young Master. After all, when we were in Yongfu village, those girls all hid far away when they saw young Master. Young Master had already become a 20-year-old wifeless man, so his market was not good. However, once he left Yongfu village, young Master immediately became popular. We have to be wary." Yundong was speechless. She patted Tong Shuitao's shoulder. "I think what you said makes sense, but I can't stand keeping an eye on someone all the time, so forget it. I know better than you what kind of person your Master is. Even if he really likes other women one day, it's not like I can't live alone. Are you afraid that I won't be able to support you?" "Of course not." "All right, don't let your imagination run wild. Otherwise you'll feel even more dizzy. Well, stew pork ribs with radishes tonight." Thinking of Miss Culinary skills, Tong Shuitao couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Although she was seasick, her appetite didn't seem to have decreased. It was also a very magical thing. Yundong carried the pork ribs out, but when she thought of what Tong Shuitao had said, she returned to her cabin to look for Qingyuan. However, when she went over, she realized that the door of the cabin was locked. He should have gone out. Yundong did not go in again. She carried the pork ribs to the small kitchen. When she entered, she realized that there was already someone in the small kitchen, and it was a girl. The girl was bending over and fanning the stove. When she saw her enter, she looked up at her and nodded expressionlessly. Then, she continued fanning the fire. Yundong smelled medicine. It should be a medicine jar. She nodded and began to do her own thing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:13. Dr. Cui Yundong soaked the ribs in clean water and took out the fish that had already been processed. There was no shortage of aquatic products on the ship. There were fish sold on the ship every day, so Yundong made different fish to eat. braised fish, steamed fish, pickled fish, sweet and sour fish, spicy boiled fish, fish head tofu soup, fried fish pieces, and so on. It had only been 2 days, and there were still many things on her menu that had not been tried. Today, with the pork rib soup, she wanted to make fried fish. Yundong was thinking about the steps when she felt a gaze on her. She turned her head slightly and met the gaze of the girl who was brewing the medicine. The girl immediately retracted her gaze and went to open the medicine jar. Yundong raised her eyebrows and continued with her work. However, after a while, the girl looked over again. Yundong turned around and she looked away. This repeated several times until another girl came in from outside. Only then did the girl leave with the medicine jar. The girl who came in later was a maidservant of a madam on the ship. She was in charge of the madam's food and had become familiar with Yundong over the past 2 days. The maid greeted Yundong and got busy. After a while, she leaned over and whispered, "Mrs. Shao, do you know who the girl who went out just now was?" "I don't know." Yundong's hands did not stop. She asked casually, "Do you know her?" "No." The maidservant shook her head. Yundong, unexpectedly the maidservant quickly said, "She boarded the ship from Heading Manor today. The moment she came up, she saw many people getting seasick. They felt terrible and vomited at the side. She said that she was a doctor and borrowed the kitchen from the crew to start brewing medicine. Then, she gave it to those who got seasick. This is the 3rd jar she brewed." Yundong was surprised. "Doctor." She thought of the girl's expressionless face just now. With such a cold expression, she really did not look like a doctor. The maidservant nodded. "My madam said that this girl is a good person. She provided the medicine for free and didn't require money. Mrs. Shao, isn't your maidservant seasick? Why don't you ask her for it too?" Yundong asked, "Are those people feeling better after taking the seasickness medicine?" "A little better, but you know, this boat has been sailing all this time. Even after taking the medicine, they still don't look very energetic. But at least, they're not vomiting anymore. It's not that uncomfortable." Yundong nodded. Shuitao had also taken Brother Shao's medicine. Not long after, the girl returned and continued to brew medicine. The maidservant did not speak to Yundong again. The 3 people in the kitchen quietly went about their business. After cooking dinner, Yundong placed the food in the food box and carried it out. However, when she left, Yundong could clearly feel that the medicine lattice gaze was fixed on her back. Yundong frowned. She did not like this feeling. If there was anything, just say it. What did he mean by sizing her up from time to time? She frowned as she headed for the stateroom. Unexpectedly, as soon as she reached the deck, she saw Qingyuan talking to a middle-aged man. Yundong looked over and hesitated for a moment, but did not go over. She just carried the food box into the cabin first. When she came out to look for Qingyuan again, she saw a person standing beside the middle-aged man and Qingyuan. Yundong narrowed her eyes. Coincidentally, that person also turned to look at her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13-14. Don't worry, she doesn't like me. It was the girl who was brewing medicine in the small kitchen. Yundong's gaze met hers. A different expression appeared on the other party's expressionless face. She raised her chin slightly and then looked away as if nothing had happened. Yundong. She finally understood why this woman often sized her up in the small kitchen. Yundong did not respond. She turned around and entered the cabin. On the other hand, the lady was slightly stunned. Then she sneered. Qingyuan quickly ended the topic and followed her into the cabin. As soon as he entered, he realized that the other 3 were already eating. No one was waiting for him. Qingyuan was stunned. He did not say anything and sat beside Yundong. "Hungry?" "Not really. But it's getting late. I didn't know how long you'd be chatting with others. If you come back too late, well, I'll have cold food. The temperature is so low now." Qingyuan was surprised. She saw him chatting with someone? Shao was especially good at reading people's expressions. When he saw that the atmosphere was not right, he quickly picked up his food and stood up. "I'll go back to my room to eat." Although Tong Shuitao was a little slow because of seasickness, she also got up and left unsteadily. The cabin door closed, leaving the two of them alone in the room. Qingyuan smiled and hugged Yundong's waist. Since you saw me talking to them, why didn't you go over and meet them? Why should I? There was a beauty beside us. Qingyuan was stunned again. Then, he looked at her with bright eyes. Are you jealous? Yundong was speechless. She took the bowl that belonged to him and stuffed it into his hands. No. She was very reasonable. Why would she be jealous of such an unfounded thing? However, Qingyuan was very happy. He was not in a hurry to eat. He placed the bowl back on the table and began to talk about the identity of the person just now. That person is an imperial physician from the capital. An imperial physician in the capital? Qingyuan nodded. He's Imperial Physician Cui, who's in charge of vaccination in the Heading Prefecture. Now that the deadline to return to the capital is close, he's naturally on the ship back to the capital. That girl is his daughter and has been learning medicine from Imperial Physician Cui. No wonder she knew Qingyuan. The imperial physicians from the capital should have people protecting them, right? Because of the special situation, Qingyuan didn't have any guards protecting him. There are indeed two, but I don't know where they are. Usually, the guards don't interfere with Imperial Physician Cui's matters. They only appear when he encounters danger. Yundong glanced at him. Are you very familiar with Imperial Physician Cui? Not really. Imperial Physician Cui and Imperial Physician Song are friends, so we met a few times. This time, we greeted each other. Then Miss Cui. Does she like you? Qingyuan raised his eyebrows and suddenly fell silent for a moment, as if he was considering how to answer this question. Yundong pinched him. Is it that difficult? It's not difficult, Qingyuan immediately replied. Imperial Physician Cui did vaguely mention marriage, but after knowing that I already had a fiancé, he didn't mention it again. As for Miss Cui, he frowned and said affirmatively, she doesn't like me. Are you sure? Don't worry, she doesn't like me. Back then, when she found out that I proposed the cowpox vaccination method, she even scolded me for being boorish and lacking medical ethics. Do you think she likes me? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13-15, None of Your Business. Yundong. She might not have liked him previously, but after the success of the cowpox vaccination method, it was hard to say if Miss Cui liked Qingyuan. However, only she knew this the best. Yundong did not say anything else. She just reached out and pinched his face. But your face is getting more and more attractive. I might really have to hide you one day. I want to hide you too. Qingyuan lowered his head and pressed down. I have no one else. Really? Qingyuan smiled. His wife did not seem to know how charming she was. Not to mention the people far away, just Duan, whom she had recently met in Wanqing Prefecture. When that kid first saw Yundong after he woke up, the surprise in his eyes was very obvious. Later, when he saw her husband, he hid the feelings in his eyes. However, Qingyuan was a sharp person. How could he not tell? If Duan had not been gentlemanly enough to keep his distance knowing that Yundong was married, Qingyuan would never have cooperated with him. However, he and Duan had a tacit understanding. There was no need to tell Yundong about this. Eat. Yundong did not dwell on the matter of Imperial Physician Cui and his daughter. She rested after eating. She continued to do her own thing, but the atmosphere on the ship was obviously different from the previous 2 days. There were more and more voices about Miss Cui's Bodhisattva heart. Most of these people had taken Miss Cui's seasickness medicine after they got seasickness. Yundong only shook her head when she heard that. The effects of seasickness did not last long. They had taken the medicine today, but if they did not go ashore tomorrow, they would still vomit uncomfortably. Miss Cui might be able to take care of things for a while, but could it be that she could always provide medicine for free? Did she have it? Yundong smiled and turned to enter the kitchen. Unexpectedly, Miss Cui was already there. She was still sitting in front of the medicine jar, making the medicine. Seeing her come in, she was slightly stunned for a moment before continuing to work. Yundong did her own thing, but Miss Cui slowly began to lose her composure. From time to time, She would raise her head and size her up. But since she did not speak, Yundong did not speak either. It was as if she was the one who was impatient. She was not the one with ulterior motives. As expected, not long after, Miss Cui couldn't help but ask, "You're Shao Qingyuan's countryside wife?" Countryside wife? This form of address did not seem wrong. Yundong turned around and wiped her hands on her apron. This action indeed made Miss Cui frown. Yundong found it funny. "Miss Cui, what's the matter?" Miss Cui. After pondering these words carefully for a moment, Miss Cui suddenly looked a little happier. "It seems that Shao Qingyuan has mentioned me to you." Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. "What exactly do you want?" Miss Cui's face returned to its expressionless state. "You seem to be very good at cooking. You make 3 meals a day quite sumptuously. Do you know how to cook since you were young? Shao Qingyuan seems to be very satisfied with your culinary skills." Yundong would be a fool if he did not understand the meaning behind her words. Didn't she just say that she was a countryside girl who was useless except for cooking? She could only serve men in such a way? Yundong smiled and said slowly and elegantly, "What business is it of yours? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 13:16. Yundong is an old woman. Cui Lan's expression froze. She looked at Yundong in disbelief. "You? Unbearably vulgar, simply unbearably vulgar." This woman was indeed a country bumpkin who could not be shown off. Although Shao Qingyuan was also a country bumpkin in the past, he knew that he was motivated and daring. He was bold and would only continue to advance in the future. His future was limitless. But what about the woman in front of her? She had been observing her for 2 days. For the past 2 days, this woman had been wearing gray clothes and staying in this small kitchen all day to show off her pitiful culinary skills. She didn't work hard at all to be worthy of Shao Qingyuan. Other than cooking, eating and sleeping, she would occasionally go to the deck to enjoy the breeze. What was even more unbelievable was that she clearly had a maidservant by her side, but the maidservant had been hiding inside and slacking off because of seasickness. She did not say, scold, or sell her. She actually had to serve her food. A woman like Yundong could not keep up with Shao Qingyuan at all. Even a maidservant could climb over her head and lord over her. If she did not have the ability to manage the servants, wouldn't Shao Qingyuan's backyard be in chaos in the future? Cui Lan felt wronged and indignant for Shao Qingyuan. In the end, it all turned into heartache. If they hadn't been engaged long ago, why would Shao Qingyuan marry such an unbearable wife? Yundong did not know that the woman in front of her had a dark expression, and her heart was already in turmoil. She had been belittled to the point of being useless. She felt refreshed after saying those words. She ignored Cui Lan and continued to cook. However, after a long time of mental preparation, Cui Lan spoke to her again. "Miss Gu." She suddenly extended her hand. "On account of the fact that I know Shao Qingyuan, I advise you to change yourself. This is the rouge cream I concocted myself. After applying it on your face, it will make your face pale and tender. You won't become an old woman." Yundong was speechless. Ha! What was this girl thinking? Her face was originally very fair and tender. It was much better than yours, all right? Just as she thought this, a surprised voice came from outside. "Miss Cui, can I buy a box?" Yundong looked up and saw that the maid whom she knew earlier was looking at Cui Lan happily. She looked a little embarrassed. "Miss Cui is a doctor. Your rouge cream is definitely the best. Can I buy 2 boxes?" "Of course." Cui Lan nodded. "We're all women. We should help each other." Then, she looked at Yundong. "Miss Gu, do you want it? I won't take your money." Yundong narrowed her eyes. So that was the case. Cui Lan looked expressionless and straightforward, but she was not unfamiliar with tricks. Yundong glanced at the rouge ointment in her hand and then at the maid. The servant girl was looking at Yundong enviously. After all, Cui Lan did not accept her money. She urged Yundong, "Mrs. Shao, quickly accept it. Don't let Dr. Xia's good intentions down." Yundong smiled and said to Cui Lan, "Sure, but although this is Dr. Xia's kind intentions, I can't take it for free. I'll buy it with silver too." As she spoke, She searched her body but could not find any silver. She was instantly vexed. I didn't bring any silver. I'll go back and get it now. Dr. Cui, wait for me for a while. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:17. In that bunch of cow dung with that. Yundong put all the dishes into the food box and walked out of the kitchen. However, just as she stepped out, she suddenly stopped. She turned to look at Cui Lan and said in confusion, "By the way, there's a question I've been wanting to ask." "What is it?" Yundong smiled innocently. "Since Dr. Cui knows that I'm married and that my husband's surname is Shao, why do you keep calling me Miss Gu? If you hadn't called me just now, I wouldn't have noticed. I heard that Dr. Cui's family is also a big family in the capital. I've never been to the capital. I don't know if the rules there are different from what I know." Cui Lan's expression suddenly froze, and so did the servant girl, Yuer. Yuer was a maid from a rich family, after all. She knew all the twists and turns. After hearing Yundong's words, the way she looked at Cui Lan changed. What did she mean by the rules in the capital were different? There was no one in the capital who called a married woman Mississippi. They were not her family. Cui Lan tightened her grip on the rouge ointment, but her voice was still cold and emotionless. "It was a slip of the tongue. I saw that Mrs. Shao was young and in her prime, so I unknowingly called you Mississippi. I won't do it again in the future." "Dr. Cui, why are you saying that I'm young again? You just said that I need your rouge cream to not become an old woman." Cui Lan's face twitched slightly. Was this woman really stupid or was she pretending to be stupid? Women should still take precautions. Yundong was enlightened. She nodded. "You're right." Then she left. After leaving, she did not come back. She and Shao Qingyuan ate dinner happily. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao's food were brought to their rooms. After eating and clearing the dishes, Yundong crossed her arms and stared at Shao Qingyuan from head to toe. The latter felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine under her gaze. "What's wrong?" Yundong snorted. "And you say you're not a femme fatale?" Yundong narrowed her eyes and said, "That Miss Cui is very indignant on your behalf. You're outstanding and capable, while I only know how to cook. She thinks that you're like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung after marrying me. In that pile of cow dung." Shao Qingyuan frowned. "She said that about you? I'll look for her." Was there something wrong with this Cui girl that made her wife unhappy? Shao Qingyuan stood up and walked out. Unexpectedly, Yundong suddenly stretched out her leg and pressed it against the door, blocking him. She tilted her head and snorted. "What's the hurry?" Shao Qingyuan lowered his head and held her ankle with his right hand. He moved it up her calf and carried her to sit on the bed. He hugged her waist and said, "You're not cow dung. I am. Without you, I would have been trampled to pieces. All right, stop talking." She had just finished her meal and did not want to discuss such a smelly topic. Even though she was the one who brought up the cow dung first. "If Miss Cui provokes you, I'll go to Imperial Physician Cui and explain. Anyway, we don't have much of a relationship." "No need." Yundong only wanted him to make a statement. She would not really blame Shao Qingyuan. Not to mention, "I want to see what Miss Cui wants to do. It's a good opportunity for me to practice in advance." "Practice? What practice?" Shao Qingyuan was puzzled. Yundong smiled and did not answer. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 13:18. Coming to the door practicing, of course, was to compete with the girls from these rich families in advance. Based on the current information, Brother Shao's family should be either rich or noble. She did not know if they were easy to get along with. If there was someone difficult to deal with, wouldn't she have to get used to it first? Shao Qingyuan raised his eyebrows, not quite understanding. However, even if Yundong told him not to care about this matter, when Imperial Physician Cui came to visit or invited him to their cabin, Shao Qingyuan still refused. Imperial Physician Cui felt that it was a pity at first, but after a few more times, he became dissatisfied with Shao Qingyuan. He felt that if a young man started to be arrogant and rude without taking his senior seriously, he would probably not be able to go far in the future. As for Gu Yundong, she deliberately did not go to the small kitchen from before and changed to another place to continue cooking. As a result, she did not see Miss Cui for 2 days. On the third day, Miss Cui could not hold back and knocked on Gu Yundong's cabin door. As soon as the door opened, she looked inside. Miss Cui's eyes were filled with disappointment and relief when she didn't see Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong stood at the door and saw her expression clearly. "Miss Cui, why are you here?" "Mrs. Sha." Cui Lan took a deep breath and looked at Gu Yundong. "Last time, you asked me for rouge ointment, but I didn't see you in the small kitchen. There were many girls who bought rouge ointment these 2 days. I only have 2 boxes on hand, so I came to ask you if you still want it." Gu Yundong blinked. After a moment, she came to a realization. She slapped her forehead and said, "Look at me. I forgot about this that day. When I carried the food box back to my room, my husband happened to be talking to me about something. Once he started talking, it was endless. Didn't I forget about this? When I thought about it later, it was already the next day. I thought that it would be fine. It wouldn't be good to look for him again." Cui Lan said, "Really? Then why did Mrs. Shao change the kitchen these 2 days?" "Sigh, it's all because of my husband. Recently, he's become more and more picky. He said that the food I cooked 2 days ago always had the smell of medicine, and he ate as if he was drinking medicine. I thought that it was because Miss Cui was brewing medicine at the side. That's why I changed the kitchen." Cui Lan was speechless. She actually had a good reason? Gu Yundong tilted her head. "I don't want Miss Cui's rouge ointment. My husband doesn't like me to put too much makeup on my face. I have to let you down." Cui Lan clenched her fists slightly. This woman kept calling him husband, as if others did not know that their relationship was great. However, there was a saying that went, the more a woman lacks something, the more she cared about it, and the more she would show off. She kept mentioning how Shao Qingyuan doted on her and loved her. Wasn't it because she wasn't confident? She narrowed her eyes and sized up Gu Yundong. She had thought that this was an ignorant village woman, but now it seemed that she had some tricks up her sleeve. It was just that these methods were not presentable and she could only show off. Cui Lan knew that she was not as eloquent as Gu Yundong, but her brain was better than hers. Since Mrs. Shao doesn't want it, I'll take it back. As expected, she simply put away the rouge cream and turned around to leave. Gu Yundong stood at the door of the cabin and watched her leave with a smile. Only when Cui Lan had completely disappeared did she turn around and prepare to close the cabin door. Unexpectedly, 2 people happened to walk over from the corridor in front. As they walked, they turned their heads to look in Cui Lan's direction. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1319. About Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong paused and heard the 2 of them talking softly. This Dr. Cui is not very honest. She only provided the seasickness medicine for 2 days. If you ask her again, she'll claim that it's been used up. If she doesn't want to give it to you, so be it. Why did she have to pretend to be a kind person previously? You don't know, right? In the past 2 days, many girls on the ship have asked Dr. Cui to buy rouge ointment. That seasickness medicine is a business without money. This rouge ointment is the main source of money. Naturally, she's more willing to spend her efforts on it. That's right. Those who need seasickness medicine are all poor people with no money. Those who have money have already prepared it themselves. Perhaps Dr. Cui has brewed medicine for 2 days and despised them. Ha! Don't you have money too? Why are you asking her for seasickness pills? I think the effect is pretty good. It would be a waste not to take it. Their conversation gradually faded away. Gu Yundong secretly shook her head and closed the cabin door. She had long said that Cui Lan would not gain anything by doing this. Actually, Gu Yundong was not the only one who heard this conversation. Cui Lan was the same. The people who spoke even deliberately ran over to talk about her, ignoring her ugly expression. Cui Lan was furious. She had already suffered at Gu Yundong's hands. She did not expect the people she had helped to be so ungrateful. These people were simply ingrates who did not know how to be grateful. She had been kind enough to think for them, but in the end, it was her fault. When those people received benefits from others, they would thank them profusely. When they lost these benefits, they would immediately turn hostile. These people would suffer retribution sooner or later. Cui Lan took a deep breath, tightened her grip on the rouge cream, and opened the stateroom door. When she entered, she saw Imperial Physician Cui grinding herbs with his head lowered. When he heard the sound, he looked up. "What's wrong, Laner? You don't look too good." "Nothing." Cui Lan shook her head. "I probably didn't sleep well last night. The cabin next door is too noisy." As she spoke, she helped Imperial Physician Cui pick herbs. When Imperial Physician Cui heard this, he quickly said, "Then let's switch rooms tonight. It's quiet here." "No need. It's not like it's noisy every day. The guest in the room next door might have had a nightmare last night. It's fine." Imperial Physician Cui did not insist and only let her rest. Cui Lan, on the other hand, did her own thing. She lowered her head and looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. After a long while, she finally looked up at Imperial Physician Cui and asked, "Father, have you seen Shao Qingyuan's wife?" Imperial Physician Cui was stunned for a moment. He thought for a moment and said, "I've seen her from afar once, but I've never spoken to her." "Why? Have you seen her?" "Yes, I have," Cui Lan said. "Father, do you know why Shao Qingyuan married his current wife back then?" Imperial Physician Cui stopped grinding herbs. He looked at his daughter and frowned slightly. Cui Lan was still the same. There was no expression on her face, but her eyes flickered slightly. Imperial Physician Cui asked, "Why are you asking this?" "Nothing. I'm just curious. I've seen that Madame Shao before. She looks really ordinary." Shao Qingyuan is no longer an ordinary farmer. It's not impossible to find a better one. Imperial Physician Cui looked at his daughter seriously for a moment and sighed in his heart. After a long time he said in a low voice, "I heard Imperial Physician Song talk about this Madame Shao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 13:20. Shao Qingyuan's kindness to Gu Yundong. Cui Lan immediately straightened her back slightly and looked at Imperial Physician Cui expectantly. Imperial Physician Cui put down the tool and recalled what Imperial Physician Song had said back then. At that time, Imperial Physician Song said with a nonchalant expression, "You're asking about Shao Qingyuan's fiancée? I've seen her before, of course I've seen her. That girl is a little pretty. She's a little smart, but she's not enough in front of me. She runs a small business herself and has a little money. Shao Qingyuan was especially poor in the past. Blah blah blah." At that time, Imperial Physician Song spoke in a scattered manner and said whatever came to his mind. At this moment, Imperial Physician Cui had to reorganize everything before he said. Imperial Physician Song said that this Miss Gu is a capable person. Her family does some small business. In the past, Shao Qingyuan's family was poor and he didn't have any relatives. It was a problem for him to eat 3 meals a day. Miss Gu and he were neighbors and helped each other. Later on, it was only natural for them to be engaged. I heard that Shao Qingyuan came to the capital to offer the cowpox vaccination method. This Miss Gu supported him wholeheartedly. Cui Lan pondered in her heart as she listened. Shao Qingyuan was very poor in the past and did not have enough to eat. Gu Yundong had helped him a lot. Rather than saying that he liked Gu Yundong, it would be more accurate to say that he was grateful. If he really liked Gu Yundong, why would Gu Yundong always emphasize on that? That was true. Shao Qingyuan was someone who knew how to repay kindness. Otherwise, she wouldn't have liked him. Therefore, it was impossible for Shao Qingyuan to give up on Gu Yundong. He was not a heartless man and would not do such an ungrateful thing. No wonder Gu Yundong had to personally go to the kitchen to cook. This was to remind Shao Qingyuan of her past kindness. Cui Lan frowned and her expression turned even uglier. Therefore, it was impossible for Shao Qingyuan to leave Gu Yundong. Then, what about the other way around? Cui Lan's hands had stopped moving at some point. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared out of the window, seemingly in a daze. Imperial Physician Cui sighed secretly. "Laner, Shao Qingyuan is already married. No matter what the reason is, he has a wife. You're so outstanding. After returning to the capital, father will definitely choose a good husband for you." Cui Lan suddenly came back to her senses. She immediately stood up and said, "I know, father." What good husband! She was just an inconspicuous imperial physician's daughter. She was also a medical woman who appeared in public all day long. The young masters of the aristocratic families in the capital looked down on her. She did not care for them either. Cui Lan shook hands and left the cabin in a hurry. Imperial physician Cui opened his mouth but hesitated. He only had one daughter. Her mother had passed away early, and he was busy. When she was young, she had been bullied by servants, so she had developed the habit of being expressionless since she was young. Imperial physician Cui felt that he had mistreated her. In order to make up for it, he went along with her almost everything. However, Cui Lan had her own opinions since she was young and made her own decisions. For example, if she asked to study medicine, he would teach her. For example, when he was ordered to come to the Heading Prefecture this time, she also wanted to follow him to see the world, so he brought her here. But now, she seemed to have lost her heart to Shao Qingyuan. Imperial physician Cui did not know how to persuade her and could only remind her. He hoped that she could figure it out herself. In Imperial physician Xue's heart, his daughter was very outstanding. Perhaps she was unwilling to give up in such a short period of time, but she definitely would not do anything to destroy someone else's family. However, it was indeed a pity for Shao Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1321. I have news of by Muzi. Imperial physician Cui was optimistic, but he did not know that after Cui Lan left the cabin, her eyes became brighter and brighter. A certain thought also became more and more determined. The passenger ship sailed for another day and stopped in the nearby prefectural city for half a day. When it set off again, the sky had already darkened. Cui Lan watched with her own eyes as Shao Qingyuan and Shao Wen carried a basket of small fish to the bow of the ship. She took a deep breath and walked to Gu Yundong's cabin door. She raised her hand and knocked. Gu Yundong had just finished dinner and was reading a book while waiting for Shao Qingyuan to come back. She planned to fry some fish later as snacks, and she did not expect someone to knock on the door. She was stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, she guessed who the person might be. She opened the door and saw Cui Lan, who had no expression on her face. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. "Dr. Cui, what's the matter? I want to talk to you alone." Gu Yundong turned sideways. "Shall we talk inside?" "No need. It's the same if we talk outside." Gu Yundong pondered for a moment and nodded. "All right, I'll get a cloak." She entered the room and came back with her cloak. She locked the cabin door and followed Cui Lan. It was actually a little cold now, especially since it was evening. The temperature had dropped sharply and they were on the river, so the wind was a little strong. Gu Yundong looked at Cui Lan walking in front of her and shrinking her neck. She could not help but laugh secretly. Cui Lan quickly led her to the corner of the deck. There were some wooden barrels and sacks piled there, so no one came except the crew. If they wanted to say something in private, it was appropriate here. Cui Lan stopped in her tracks and looked at the ripples at the bottom of the boat. She narrowed her eyes and turned to ask Gu Yundong, "I have a question for you, Mrs. Shao." "Ask away." "Is Mrs. Shao sincere about Shao Qingyuan?" This question was so stupid that Gu Yundong did not want to answer. "Of course I'm sincere." Cui Lan's lips curled up. "Is that so? If you're sincere, then you're willing to do anything for Shao Qingyuan, right?" Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. What exactly is Dr. Cui trying to say? Mrs. Shao has always said that she has a deep love for her husband. Shao Qingyuan shouldn't have hidden anything from Mrs. Shao, right? Gu Yundong found it funny. Why did Cui Lan look like she knew Shao Qing better than his wife did? She and Shao Qingyuan had clearly not spoken much, but she had placed herself in a very subtle position. Gu Yundong smiled and nodded. "Yes, he doesn't hide anything from me." In that case, Mrs. Shao also knows that Shao Qingyuan is looking for a medicinal herb called by Muzi? Gu Yundong suddenly looked up at her. Her gaze instantly became exceptionally sharp. By Muzi? She did not expect to hear the name by Muzi from Cui Lan's mouth. Of course, she knew that Brother Shao was looking for by Muzi. Furthermore, this by Muzi was for her mother. Cui Lan glanced at Gu Yundong and looked away. It seems that Mrs. Shao knows. By Muzi is an extremely rare medicinal ingredient. Mostly, it is used for brain diseases and is very precious. Currently, only a few people in the entire Jin dynasty have this medicine. Even if someone has this medicine, there are too few people who know about it. It can be said to be priceless. As she spoke, Cui Lan looked at Gu Yundong. Shao Qingyuan really needed this medicine. When he came to the capital, I saw with my own eyes that after he found out about Muzi's whereabouts, he couldn't wait to personally confirm it. Because of this, he was almost killed on the spot as a thief. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1322. This herb is for me. Gu Yundong was shocked. She did not know about this. Shao Qingyuan had never mentioned it to her after he returned. This idiot had promised that he would not hide anything from her. He had also said that no matter what happened, his life should be the top priority. However, Cui Lan was not done speaking. There was a noble in the capital who looked down on Shao Qingyuan. When he found out that Shao Qingyuan was looking for Muzi, he specially released the news that he had this medicinal herb and could sell it to Shao Qingyuan at a high price. The condition was that Shao Qingyuan had to be his slave for a year. Shao Qingyuan agreed without hesitation. Although that noble later found it boring and did not continue to joke like this, it was true that Shao Qingyuan was willing to be someone's slave for Muzi. Gu Yundong's expression turned ugly. Shao Qingyuan, you actually hid this from me. Seeing her like this, Cui Lan's lips curled up slightly. However, she quickly calmed down. She looked at Gu Yundong. It seems that Mrs. Shao doesn't know about these things. I thought that husband and wife would be honest with each other about everything. Gu Yundong suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and looked at Cui Lan coldly. Her patience was disappearing bit by bit. From what you're saying, you seem to know about Muzi. Cui Lan nodded. I do have news about Muzi, but whether I'm willing to tell you or not is my business. What can I do for you to reveal Muzi's whereabouts? Cui Lan said, you must leave Shao Qingyuan. Huh. Although Gu Yundong had guessed that this was probably the result, she did not expect her to say it so shamelessly. You know how badly Shao Qingyuan wants this herb. He's such a proud person, but he didn't hesitate to be a servant for this herb. It can be seen how important this herb is to him. It's so important that he's willing to pay any price. If you treat him sincerely, you should help him. As long as you leave him, I'll offer this herb with both hands. Gu Yundong was a little tired of this condition. Cui Lan said, I'll give you 2 days to consider. Actually, think about it carefully. Even if you don't leave Shao Qingyuan, as long as I say that I have news of Muzi, I think he will agree to any of my requests, including leaving you. If that's the case, why did you come to me instead of looking for him? I just want you to be more dignified. You can naturally tell which is better for you, being abandoned or giving up. It would be strange if Gu Yundong believed her. Cui Lan liked Shao Qingyuan, but she wanted to leave a good impression on him, so she wanted to start with her. This was clearly an extremely disgusting act. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and looked at Cui Lan's condescending gaze, who felt that her existence was hindering Shao Qingyuan's future. She could not help but want to slap her. Mrs. Shao, think about it carefully. If there are any problems, you can come to me. Perhaps I can give you some ideas. After Cui Lan finished speaking, she wanted to turn around and return to the cabin. But just as she turned around, Gu Yundong's voice came from behind. Cui Lan. She did not call her Dr. Cui anymore. Then do you know why Shao Qingyuan is so desperate for this herb? Cui Lan turned around and saw Gu Yundong's mocking smile gradually deepen. She heard her say word by word, because this herb is for me. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1323. Pushing Gu Yundong into the water, Cui Lan suddenly raised her head and widened her eyes. She looked at Gu Yundong, who was laughing at her, in disbelief. She shook her head. Impossible. If you don't believe me, you can ask my husband. The disdain in Gu Yundong's eyes became even more obvious. Why don't you think about it? Why would Shao Qingyuan want that medicinal herb? You also said that he was alone. Who did he give that medicinal herb to? For himself? Or for his own medicinal herb shop. But have you ever seen a medicinal merchant willing to give his life for a medicinal herb? Cui Lan took a step back, her face pale. That's right, she didn't expect this. She actually didn't expect this. Gu Yundong laughed. Now, do you understand how much my husband values me? If I leave him, your medicine will be useless to him. Cui Lan's breathing quickened. She stared fixedly at Gu Yundong, as if she wanted to see any signs of lying on her face. But she did not. Gu Yundong's eyes were filled with contempt and confidence. She was not afraid of anyone asking Shao Qingyuan. She was not afraid of this threat at all. Cui Lan's fingers dug into her palms, almost causing her to bleed. She suddenly thought of something and said, "In that case, you're the one who wants by Muzi. All right, if you leave Shao Qingyuan, I'll give by Muzi to you." Was she trying everything she could in a moment of desperation? Gu Yundong shook her head in amusement. Do I look like such an idiot? You! Gu Yundong could not be bothered to talk to her. She turned around and was about to return to the cabin. Unexpectedly, just as she turned her head, she felt a gust of wind behind her. Gu Yundong turned her head abruptly and saw Cui Lan reaching out to push her with a ferocious expression. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and shifted her feet. She grabbed the wooden bucket beside her with one hand and Cui Lan with the other, throwing her out of the deck. Ah! Cui Lan screamed, her eyes filled with fear. The next moment, she realized that her entire body was suspended on the edge of the ship. The only thing that kept her from falling was Gu Yundong's hand. Cui Lan trembled in fear. She could only hold Gu Yundong's hand tightly and shout in a trembling voice, "Pull me up! Pull me up!" Gu Yundong lay on the deck, her right foot hooked onto the hemp rope not far away. Her expression was leisurely and she was not in a hurry at all. "Pull you up?" Gu Yundong sneered. "You want to push me into the water, you want to kill me, and now you expect me to pull you up? Do you think I'm a good person who repays evil with kindness? I didn't do it on purpose. I just slipped. I didn't want to harm you." Cui Lan hurriedly denied. She had been impulsive just now. It was really uncomfortable to be hanging like this. Cui Lan's voice was intermittently blown by the wind. "I'm a doctor. I've always helped the world and never thought of harming anyone. Really, I'm just threatening you. I don't want to kill anyone." "I don't believe you. You!" Cui Lan's body swayed. "Gu Yundong, if you let go, you'll be killing someone. You have to pay with your life for killing someone. Moreover, my father is an imperial physician and he's an official of the imperial court. If you harm me, your entire family will be implicated by you. Your husband won't want you either. It won't do you any good." Gu Yundong sighed. This girl was still threatening her even at this point. She really wouldn't shed a tear until she saw the coffin. "Look at how nervous you are. I didn't say I would kill you." She smiled, but the malice in her eyes was obvious. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1324. You're so scheming, however, as long as I let go gently, you will fall into the river. Don't worry, you won't die for the time being after falling. I will immediately ask the crew to jump down and save you. Gu Yundong spoke slowly and meaningfully. What else did Cui Lan not understand? Yes, as long as she did not drown, Gu Yundong would not kill anyone. When she was rescued by the rough crew, she would be drenched in public and her innocence would be lost. She would suffer from rumors. If she could not marry into a good family, even her father would be implicated by her. He would be pointed at and his future would be affected. Cui Lan's expression changed. She looked up at Gu Yundong in disbelief. "You're so sinister. Thank you for your compliment." Gu Yundong accepted her praise with a smile. Cui Lan took a deep breath and suddenly shouted, "Help, someone is killing." Before she could finish speaking, she felt Gu Yundong loosen her grip. Cui Lan immediately screamed, "Ah! What are you doing? Continue shouting. See if it's faster for you to call for help or if it's faster for me to throw you down." Cui Lan instantly shut her mouth and did not dare to make a sound. She regretted choosing this position. No one came here, and there were buckets and sacks blocking the way. Besides, the sky was dark now. Coupled with the sound of water, no one could hear them. Cui Lan felt like she couldn't hold on any longer. Her hands felt like they were about to break. She was extremely afraid. She looked up at Gu Yundong, who still looked calm, and hated her. What are you trying to do? Gu Yundong smiled. It was finally time to start negotiating. I don't know what I want to do either. After all, you were the one who pushed me first. I only did this because of my quick wit. I wasn't prepared to ask you to compensate me in advance. Of course, you can also think about what bargaining chips you have to convince me to pull you up. Wasn't the hint obvious enough? As expected, Cui Lan's expression changed slightly. I don't have much leverage. Gu Yundong smiled. This girl was still being stubborn at this juncture. All right, Gu Yundong pried her fingers off her wrist one by one. Cui Lan was shocked and hurriedly shouted, By Muzi, I have news for you about By Muzi. Gu Yundong stopped. That was more obedient. She looked like she was weighing whether this bargaining chip was big enough. All right, since you want to tell me so badly, I'll listen. If I'm satisfied, I'll pull you up. What if you go back on your word? Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. But you only have one choice now. Cui Lan took a deep breath and her expression became even uglier. Yes, she had no other choice now. She would take a gamble or be thrown down. Okay, I'll tell you. You'd better tell me the truth. Gu Yundong smiled. If I hear anything amiss, I'll throw you down. You? Cui Lan pursed her lips and gritted her teeth. By Muzi is in the capital. Gu Yundong loosened her grip and Cui Lan said anxiously, I'm not lying. This is very strange. If you knew that By Muzi was in the capital, you should have told Shao Qingyuan long ago. Why didn't you tell him back then? He wasn't married at that time. It should have been easier for you to succeed at that time, right? Cui Lan hurriedly said, I didn't know long ago. I was only informed when I arrived at the heading prefecture. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1325. You're simply trash, continue. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Yes, if she only found out when she reached the heading prefecture, she would indeed not have the chance to tell Shao Qingyuan. Cui Lan was dizzy from the wind and Gu Yundong's scare. She could not think of a perfect lie, so she told the truth. I saved the life of the grandson of a rich family in the heading prefecture. That rich family was very grateful to me and my father. Later on, I accidentally heard him mention By Muzi. I thought about how Shao Qingyuan had put in a lot of effort to search for this medicinal herb. That rich family saw that I urgently needed this medicinal herb. In order to repay me for saving his life, the master of the family said that his son in the capital had won. He could write a letter to his son and tell him what had happened. His son would definitely give By Muzi to me. Which family in the capital? Cui Lan paused for a moment and said, The Yen family, a tea merchant family in the capital. Tea merchants. What about the letter? I don't have it, Cui Lan replied. Old Master Yen directly wrote it and sent it to the capital. The Yen family also knows my father's identity. After we return to the capital, the Yen family will naturally send By Muzi to our residence. Speaking of this, Cui Lan finally had a hint of smugness on her face. Look, so what if you know about these things? You still can't get By Muzi. You already know. Can you pull me up now? Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and suddenly raised her voice. I'm done asking. Cui Lan was stunned. In the next moment, 2 footsteps came from the deck. When one of them walked up to her, she finally saw who it was. Shao Qingyuan? A look of surprise flashed across Cui Lan's face. Shao Qingyuan, you saw it. Your wife wants to kill me. She's vicious. You should see her true colors. Hurry up and pull me up. Shao Qingyuan glanced sideways at Cui Lan and did not say a word to her. He only said to Gu Yundong, When I returned to the cabin, I realized that the door was locked, so I came here to look for you. I happened to see Imperial Physician Suis guard coming over, so I stopped him. Since you're done asking, let's go back. Your hand should hurt after holding her for so long. I'll rub it for you. When Cui Lan heard this, her face was filled with disbelief. Not only did Shao Qingyuan hear it from the beginning, but he even stopped the guard who was protecting her and her father and daughter from saving her? Cui Lan felt cold all over. This shouldn't happen. Shao Qingyuan shouldn't be like this. He clearly had a chivalrous heart. He should be clearly distinguishing between right and wrong. How did this happen? Gu Yundong glanced at her and let go. Just as Cui Lan thought she was going to fall, a rope suddenly flew over and instantly wrapped around her waist. With a little force, it pulled her onto the deck. Cui Lan was still in shock. She knelt on the ground and panted heavily. After a long time, she looked up and only saw Shao Qingyuan supporting Gu Yundong's back as he left. Cui Lan's eyes were bloodshot and filled with hatred. The guard beside her lowered his eyes slightly and said in a low voice, "Miss Cui, you should return to the cabin." Cui Lan suddenly turned her head and glared at him angrily. "Where were you? The emperor asked you to protect us. Is this how you protect us? Shao Qingyuan stopped you just like that. You're simply useless." The guard narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "I'm under orders to protect Imperial Physician Cui, not you." With that, he turned around and left. He was an Imperial Guard and was only temporarily acting as Imperial Physician Cui's guard. It was not Cui Lan's turn to point and scold him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1326. Arriving in the capital, Cui Lan was dumbfounded. She sat on the deck in a daze and could not recover for a long time. It was not until a gust of wind blew that she shuddered violently. She staggered to her feet and stumbled back to her cabin. After Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan returned to the house, she narrowed her eyes and settled the score with him. "Why didn't you tell me about what happened in the capital? What about almost losing his life by Muzi? What about being threatened to be someone's slave for a year? What if it did happen? What then?" Shao Qingyuan hugged her and shook her gently. "It's all in the past. I'm not angry anymore." "Not in the past." Gu Yundong was very angry. "You always say that I deal with danger alone. What about you? I promise there won't be a next time." Shao Qingyuan immediately admitted his mistake. "I swear that if I take the risk alone next time I will." "Shut up." Shao Qingyuan obediently remained silent. He looked down and saw that she was still angry. He lowered his head and kissed her. "I'll definitely tell you everything in the future." Gu Yundong glared at him fiercely before slowly calming down. But when she thought of Cui Lan's words, Gu Yundong fell silent again. After a long while, she asked, "What do you think about Muzi? If Cui Lan is right, the Yen family will give the herbs to the Cui family. We can only start from the Cui family." The problem was that after this incident, the Cui family had already fallen out with them. Ordinary transactions were impossible, so they could only think of another way. The two of them looked at each other and temporarily put this matter aside. Unexpectedly the next day, Gu Yundong heard that Cui Lan was sick. It was probably because of the cold wind last night that she caught a cold. Imperial Physician Cui had never come to look for them either. It was unknown if Cui Lan did not tell him the reason or if the god had told him the truth. In short, Cui Lan's illness made Gu Yundong's life on the ship more stable. After 5 to 6 days, Cui Lan finally became more energetic, but she did not step out of the cabin door again. Gu Yundong was happy and at ease. Tong Shuitao seemed to have adapted to life on the ship. Her expression gradually improved and she could go out to do things. When she heard about the matter between Gu Yundong and Cui Lan, she was especially angry and regretful. She could not stand beside Miss and help her kick that *T into the river. After another 10 days, the passenger ship finally arrived at the port. Pumen Port was a port 50 miles away from the capital. From here, one had to take a carriage for half a day to enter the city. When the passenger ship stopped, it was not long after dawn. Shao Wan was the first to get off the ship and hire a carriage. He moved the things in the cabin to the carriage first. In any case, they did not have many things left after using up a lot of stuff during the trip. Gu Yundong kept everything that could be hidden in her space. When they got off the ship, they happened to see Imperial Physician Cui coming out of the cabin with Cui Lan. When she saw Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan, Cui Lan's expression turned ferocious. She quickly turned around and followed Imperial Physician Cui down the deck. "Looks like Cui Lan doesn't have any improper thoughts about you. It's just that she seems to hate you because of love." "It's better to hate me." Gu Yundong could not help but laugh and followed him down the deck. After getting on the carriage, the group headed straight for the capital. It was not until evening that they entered the city gate. It was already a little late, so the few of them found an inn to rest. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1327. Buying a house in the capital. The atmosphere in the capital was indeed different from other places. At night, the streets were still lively. Even on such an ordinary day, there was still a night market. However, according to Shao Qingyuan, the night market in the capital was opened within the specified range and time. It was not completely free. Gu Yundong and the others rested at the inn for the night. The next morning, they set off to look for a house. Of course, it was Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan who did it. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were sent by Shao Qingyuan to inquire about the Yan family. Shao Wen had followed Shao Qingyuan to the capital before and was quite familiar with it. After they left, Gu Yundong and Xia Ling went to look for the broker. There were many brokers in the capital. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan had some understanding when he came to the capital last time. He knew which broker had a good reputation, so they went straight there. Unfortunately, houses in the capital were too scarce, and they were especially expensive. In particular, some large houses with 4 to 5 yards were not easy to buy at all. Even if they were available, they were in very remote places. Therefore, Gu Yundong set his sights on the 3-yard houses. Such a size was perfect. It would not look empty, or too crowded with a few more people. Gu Yundong explained her request. The broker picked out 2 for her. Gu Yundong followed him to look at the 2 houses. One was in Hatai Alley, which was relatively close to the downtown area. It was a little noisy, but it was very convenient to go anywhere. There was another one on Donggu Street. This place was considered quiet, but the broker said honestly that there were several families in this area who had mistresses here. Speaking of benefits, most of the mistresses were from powerful and rich families. If she accidentally bumped into them later, she might even get to know some big shot. But Gu Yundong and the others did not need such an opportunity. There were many mistresses, and there was also a lot of trouble. Therefore, Gu Yundong finally chose the house on Hatai Alley. The house here was relatively old. Many of the older generation lived here. Occasionally, a few officials with low official positions would buy the house here. Gu Yundong asked for the price, and the broker gave her the real price, 6,000 taels. Gu Yundong's heart ached terribly. The housing prices in the capital were simply unbelievable. A house with 3 yards cost 6,000 taels. As for the 4 courtyard and 5 courtyard houses, they cost almost 10,000 taels. If there was something bigger, it would cost at least 20,000 to 30,000 taels. There were indeed many rich people in the capital. Gu Yundong sighed and took out the silver with heartache. That person was also very fast. In the afternoon, he found the owner of the house to sign the deed with them and registered with the government. This house was hers. After coming out with the warm deed, Gu Yundong looked up at the plaque above her head and said to Shao Qingyuan, "I have to change this plaque to Shao residence later. That will be much more pleasing to the eye. Well, find someone to replace it tomorrow." Shao Qingyuan looked at her and the 2 of them laughed. "We still have to get someone to clean the house tomorrow. We also have to buy some things. When the time comes, we can move in directly. The greatest benefit is that this place is quite close to the shop Nie Shuang bought. When the house is ready, we'll go to the shop to take a look." The 2 of them chatted as they returned to the inn. It was already very late. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were already waiting for them. After entering the room, the 4 of them ate something first before Shao Wen began to talk about the situation of the Yan family. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1328. Second Master Yan. The Yan family is indeed in Heading Prefecture. Master Yan, who is in the capital now, is the second son of the Yan family. He's 35 years old and is in charge of the business in the capital. Shao Wen told him everything he had found out. This Master Yan was called Yan Yihai and had been in the capital for many years. The grandson of the Yan family that Cui Lan had saved was the son of the eldest master of the Yan family, the nephew of Yan Yihai. When Gu Yundong heard this, She could not help but knock on the table. This is interesting. First Master Yan's son has been saved, but he wants Second Master Yan to pay. Will he agree? How's the relationship between the two branches of the Yan family? Shao chuckled. Madam is right. On the surface, the two brothers of the Yan family are indeed loving brothers. However, I specially asked around and found that this Second Master Yan hasn't returned to Heading Prefecture for 2 years. However, his wife and children have gone back to visit the old man. Yundong looked at Shao Qingyuan. Do you think Yan Yihai will willingly give by Muzi to the Cui family? Mostly not. So, we still have to start with the Yan family? Shao Qingyuan nodded. However, since old Master Yan wrote a letter to Yan Yihai, even if it's for show, Yan Yihai won't openly disobey his father's orders. We still have to find out what he wants to do. Yundong nodded. In fact, she felt that the possibility of getting by Muzi from the Yan family was higher than getting it from the Cui family. After all, Cui Lan had a grudge against them. After talking about Yan Yihai, Yundong looked at Tong Shuitao. Where's Qin Wenjing? Lord Qin isn't in the capital. She had gone out today to find out about Qin Wenjing and Imperial Physician Song. Not in the capital? Tong Shuitao nodded. I heard that Mr. Qin went out to the capital to do something. I don't know when he'll be back. Mrs. Qin and Miss Qin are at home, but I heard that Miss Qin has been sick recently, so the Qin residence closed its doors and refused guests. Since that was the case, Yundong would not disturb them. Imperial Physician Song has been in the palace for the past 2 days. I don't know the exact situation. She couldn't find out what was going on in the palace. Yundong nodded to show that she understood. In any case, she had many things to do. It would not be too late to look for them after everything settled down. When Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao heard that they had already bought a house, they looked very excited. The next day, they happily ran to clean the house. However, the house was a 3-courtyard house. It was still a little big. Just the two of them were still too few. Yundong inquired around the house and found 3 women to help tidy it up. She and Shao Qingyuan walked around the streets, planning to buy some things. This was Yundong's first time in the capital. The streets in the capital were wider and more prosperous than in the Xianxia prefecture. The main road in front of him could accommodate 4 carriages riding side by side. Yundong looked at the shops along the street and walked over. They needed to buy a lot of things and had little time, so they did not have much chance to shop. They basically went straight to their destination. Beds, tables, chairs, and other furniture were needed. There were also pots, pans, rice, oil, and salt that were needed in the kitchen. There were also quilts, pillowcases, brain threads, and so on. They could slowly add the others that they did need for the time being. Yundong bought everything she could and sent them to her house in Hatai Alley. Then, she went back with Shao Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1329. Reminder. Unexpectedly, just as the two of them were about to reach the entrance of the alley, they suddenly bumped into a familiar person. That person was also stunned for a moment when he saw them. Then, he walked over. Dr. Shao. Shao Qingyuan nodded at him, greeted him, and brushed past him, planning to leave. That person was about to leave, but he suddenly stopped and said, Imperial Physician Cui entered the palace to meet the Emperor as soon as he returned. This person was the Imperial Guard who had protected Imperial Physician Cui and his daughter on the ship. Now that Imperial Physician Cui had returned to the capital safely, his mission was completed. This person left after saying this. Yundong waited until his figure had completely disappeared before she asked, Are all the people in the capital so oblique? Couldn't he make it clearer? He clearly meant well, but if he met someone who wasn't quick-witted enough, they really wouldn't be able to figure it out. Shao Qingyuan led her into the alley. I don't have a relationship with him after all. We've only met once. It's already not bad that he reminded me of this. He told them that Imperial Physician Cui had gone to see the Emperor as soon as he returned to the capital. It was to report the vaccination in the Heading Prefecture. This was his duty as a subject. Although Shao Qingyuan did not have the status of an official imperial physician in the Imperial Hospital, he was in charge of the vaccination in the Xianxia Prefecture. He was shouldering the mission given by the Emperor. When he returned to the capital, he should have entered the palace to meet the emperor immediately. Unexpectedly, he stayed outside for 2 days without doing anything. Imperial physician Cui and Shao Qingyuan came back on the same boat. The emperor must have known that he had been in the capital for 2 days. If he delayed any longer, no matter how good the emperor's temper was, even if he knew that he did not know the rules of the imperial court and did not mind, others would be dissatisfied and report Shao Qingyuan. "Are you going to the palace tomorrow?" Gu Yundong asked. Shao Qingyuan nodded. "I do plan to enter the palace tomorrow." With his status, it was not enough for him to meet the emperor directly. He had to report to the head of the imperial hospital, Song Dejiang, before Song Dejiang brought him there. "I'll leave the house to you. I'll be back soon." "Yeah." The two of them walked to the entrance as they spoke. Some of the things they had bought had already been transported over. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were helping with the transportation. When they saw Gu Yundong and Gu Yundong, Tong Shuitao immediately ran over. "Miss, the room has been tidied up, and the bed and cabinet have arrived. Come in and take a look." Gu Yundong followed her in and was the first to see some old furniture and miscellaneous items piled up in the courtyard. There were some things here that were going to be sold, and some were going to be thrown away. Unexpectedly, a woman who was helping to clean the house suddenly came forward. She went to Gu Yundong's side and asked with a smile, "Madam Shao, you're back? And what's the matter?" "It's like this. Look at your bed, cabinet, and so on. You don't want the old ones anyway. Can I take them back?" Gu Yundong was stunned, but Tong Shuitao frowned and said, "I've already told you that those big items are for sale." "Sigh, look at what you're saying. Those things are all damaged. Otherwise, how could the previous owner bear to leave them behind? You just came to the capital and don't know the market in the capital. These things are not worth much money." As soon as the woman finished speaking, another woman behind her pulled her back. "All right, stop talking. These things are worth—" Before she could finish speaking, she was pushed by the woman from before. "Shut up. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1330. Let Gu Yundong do something good then. The woman continued to look at Gu Yundong. She smiled and said respectfully, "Madam Shao, you look like you're from a rich family. You don't care about this small sum of money. Why don't you do a good deed?" Gu Yundong found it funny and raised her eyebrows slightly. "Yesterday, after buying the house, I agreed to sell the bed and cabinet to the broker. Later, he will find a cart to take them away. So I can't give them to you. If you want them, you can have those things." She pointed to another pile of things to throw away. Actually, there were quite a few good things in that pile. For example, the damaged stools and chairs, as well as the cages and cabinets that had been bitten by rats. These were all ordinary wood things that could not be sold for much money. It was better to chop them up and burn them as firewood. However, if others took a fancy to it, they could naturally pull them away. Gu Yundong had some money now, so she would not mistreat herself if she could use good stuff. If she was still as poor as before, she would definitely move everything back home like a mouse. Unexpectedly, the auntie from before said with a look of disdain, "These are all broken. They can't be used at all. Why should I bring them back?" Gu Yundong smiled. "Then forget it." She raised her voice and called Tong Shuitao over. "I think the work is almost done. Let's settle the salary for the ants." The woman wanted to say something, but when she saw Shao Qingyuan, who seemed tall and cold, enter, she immediately stopped talking. However, she still looked at those things unwillingly and muttered something. Tong Shuitao quickly gave her money and sent her away. On the other hand, the woman who had stopped her earlier was at the back. After thinking about it, she hurriedly ran back and asked Gu Yundong in a low voice, "Madam Shao, do you really not want those over there?" Gu Yundong saw that she was a little embarrassed and then looked at her clothes, which were indeed a little more dilapidated than the other women's. She knew that her family was not very well off, so she nodded. "I don't want them. If Aunt likes them, you can bring them back to repair them for the children to play with." The woman was even more embarrassed, but she still thanked Gu Yundong repeatedly. Then I'll take them back." "Yes, I'll get Shuitao to help you move them. She's strong." The woman wanted to refuse, but Tong Shuitao had already run over quickly and pulled the woman to see something. When the woman was done, Gu Yundong had basically cleaned up everything and got rid of the things she could throw and burn. Later on, the broker found a few people to transport the large items away. Those things were not worth much, only 5 taels of silver in total. Gu Yundong took the money to the market next door to buy some chicken, duck, and fish. At night, they cooked a sumptuous dinner. Although there were only 4 of them, they still had to celebrate the housewarming. Gu Yundong was still not used to sleeping in her new home. She only fell asleep after a long time at night. The next day, she woke up late. When she got up, Shao Qingyuan was already not at home. He had left with Shao Wan. Gu Yundong slowly got up and washed up before bringing Tong Shuitao out. They planned to go to the shop Nie Shuang bought today to take a look. Holding the address Nie Shuang had given her, Gu Yundong strolled towards the shop. However, halfway through, a carriage suddenly passed by her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1331. Cui Lan goes to the Yen residence. Gu Yundong turned her head slightly and saw the person sitting in the carriage. Was this fate? Tong Shuitao also saw it and asked softly, "Miss, that was Miss Cui just now, right?" "Yes." Gu Yundong nodded. She looked in the direction where the carriage had disappeared and asked, "Where is it going?" Tong Shuitao thought for a moment and suddenly widened her eyes. She pointed in that direction and said, "It's the Yen residence, Mississippi." Yen residence? Gu Yundong thought of her and Shao Qingyuan's guess. According to Cui Lan, the Yen residence would send by Muzi directly to the Cui residence. However, Cui Lan had personally gone to the Yen residence. Could it be that, as they had guessed, Second Master Yen did not want to give by Muzi to them, so he did not send him over? After all, Imperial Physician Cui and the others had been back for 2 days. Gu Yundong immediately became excited and hurriedly said to Tong Shuitao, "Let's go to the Yen residence to take a look." "Miss, we can't enter." "Who said we're going in? Let's find a place nearby to sit and see if Cui Lan can get by Muzi." Tong Shuitao nodded repeatedly and immediately led Gu Yundong to the Yen residence. The Yen residence was located in a rather prosperous area in the capital. The Yen family was in the tea business and was a big family, so the house was built big and rich. Sure enough, Gu Yundong found a tea shop nearby. The shop was diagonally opposite the entrance of the Yen residence. She ordered 2 pots of tea and waited with Tong Shuitao while listening to gossip. Needless to say, there was a lot of gossip outside the Yen residence that was about the Yen family. Master Yan's youngest daughter rarely comes back after she gets married, right? She's just a concubine's daughter. Her life in the Yen family was difficult. Now that she's finally married to a good husband and is living a good life, why would she come back? I don't think so. Think about how this concubine's daughter married her husband back then. I heard that she didn't have a good life in her in-laws' family. Yes. I think I heard that the main wife's daughter of the Yen family took a fancy to her husband and was intercepted by this concubine's daughter. Therefore, this concubine's daughter was raised to be petty and ruthless. She specially did such shameless things. No way. That concubine's daughter of the Yen family is very timid. How dare she intercept her legitimate sister? The rumors were getting more and more unreliable. Someone asked the boss of the tea shop what happened. After all, he had opened a shop in front of the Yen family for a long time. The boss did not seem to intend to answer at first. He did not want to offend the Yen family. However, when he heard that the rumors were getting more and more ridiculous for some reason, he still said, "Second Miss Yen is pitiful enough. Don't ruin her reputation anymore. Have some respect." Gu Yundong could tell that this concubine's daughter had a hard time in the Yen family. As for how she married her current husband, there might be an inside story. Just as he was thinking, another carriage suddenly stopped outside the Yen residence. Someone alighted from the carriage and was helped into the side door by a maidservant. The tea shop immediately became lively. Isn't that the second daughter of the Yen family? Yes. It's the second daughter of the Yen family. Didn't everybody say that she hadn't returned to her mother's house for a long time? Why is she back today? Her mother is still in the Yen family. How can she never come back? I don't see her husband. Gu Yundong was sitting far away, so she could only see the side of the woman's face, which was delicate and pleasant looking, but she looked a little weak. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1332. Something happened to the Yen residents. The customers in the shop began to discuss again. However, perhaps because of what the shop owner had said just now, the discussion about second Miss Yen slowly stopped and they began to talk about other things in the Yen family. Yundong pricked up her ears and listened. She accepted some information, and was also speechless when she heard about the privacy of some servants. However, it was said that Yen Yihai's wife was shrewish and a little greedy. As for Yen Yihai, one of them often played the good cop and the other played the bad cop. In the end, Yen Yihai's reputation as a smooth, capable, and easy-to-talk-to businessman was created. Yundong smiled and shook her head. There were so many things to do in this rich family, and they seemed a little complicated. She listened with interest, but the door of the Yen residence had not been opened since second Miss Yen entered. It was not until noon that the side door suddenly opened and a servant from the Yen residence rushed out. Yundong narrowed her eyes and watched the servant run away in a panic. After an unknown period of time, the servant returned anxiously with another person. When Yundong saw that person, she suddenly stood up and craned her neck to look over. Imperial Physician Cui? That servant actually called Imperial Physician Cui over. Not only that, but that servant was also carrying Imperial Physician Cui's medicine box on his shoulder. Something happened to the Yen residence? Yundong scratched her ears and cheeks. She wanted to know what was going on inside, but she could not get in. What a headache! Not only her, but other guests also saw this scene and could not help but ask curiously, what happened to the Yen family? That's Imperial Physician Cui, right? Someone stood up. Hee, I'll ask around. Yundong looked at that person with a burning gaze, and that person quickly left. Yundong was still sitting there, waiting for them to come back. Unfortunately, it was as if this person was gone. After a long time, he did not appear. 2 hours later, the door of the Yen residence opened again, and 2 people came out. Yundong took a closer look. Wasn't this Imperial Physician Cui and Cui Lan? They were sent out by the butler of the Yen residence. The butler's expression was very strange. Although he seemed respectful, there was a hint of anger. However, in the face of Imperial Physician Cui, he still looked considerate and cupped his hands to bid them farewell. Both father and daughter did not look too good. Cui Lan's eyes were red. She gritted her teeth and was called by Imperial Physician Cui twice before getting into the carriage. Yundong tapped her fingers on the table and watched as their carriage went further and further away. Only then did the butler of the Yen residence snort coldly. With a flick of his sleeve, he strode back to the residence. This scene confused everyone. At this moment, the customer who had said that he was going to investigate returned with an excited smile on his face. As soon as he sat down, someone asked him, "How was it? What happened to the Yen residence? Why were you gone for so long?" That person held the tea bowl and drank a big bowl of water. Then, he wiped his mouth and said, "Sai, do you think it's so easy to find out about the Yen residence? I have to find my brother first. My brother looks for his brother. His brother still has to find his lover, who looks for her sister who has a lover, and then—" All right. Hurry up and tell us what happened." Someone interrupted him and urged him impatiently. Only then was that person satisfied. He chuckled and said, "You will never imagine how bold that girl from Imperial Physician Xia's family is. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1333. This move is wonderful. How serious? That person said mysteriously, Miss Cui sent an invitation to the Yen residence to visit the eldest daughter of the Yen residence. Not far away, the tea shop owner was also listening attentively, but when he heard this, he felt a little strange. When did this Miss Cui become so close to Miss Yen? He had opened a tea shop here for so many years, but he had never heard of Miss Yen and Miss Cui having a relationship. Only Yundong and the others knew about these problems. She said that she was visiting Miss Yen, but wasn't she actually going for by Muzi? The gossiper continued. Isn't it a coincidence today? Didn't second Miss Yen also return to her maiden home just now? She heard that Miss Cui was here. Shouldn't they meet and talk? Who knew that Miss Cui would suddenly go crazy for some reason? She suddenly smashed second Miss Yan's head when no one was around and knocked second Miss Yan unconscious. What? Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Someone quickly asked, could it be that Miss Cui couldn't stand second Miss Yan snatching her sister's husband to avenge Miss Yan? Didn't they say that they were friends? That I don't know. That person took another sip of tea before continuing. However, after second Miss Yan was knocked unconscious, the Yan family immediately went to find Imperial Physician Cui to save her. Is second Miss Yan all right? How is she fine? Even Imperial Physician Cui said that it's especially serious. So what should we do? What could he do? Of course he had to save her. However, I heard that second Miss Yan's injury can only be treated with a very precious medicine. What's it called? Baimu? I don't remember very clearly. Anyway, I heard that Master Yan gave this medicine to second Miss Yan. His heart ached. What else did Gu Yundong not understand? She looked at Tong Shuitao, whose eyes were wide open. Then, she threw down the silver and left with her. Miss is what the Yan family did what I think it is. What do you think? Gu Yundong smiled. She knew it. How could second Master Yan bear to use good medicinal herbs to pay a nephew who was not close to him? This was a brilliant move. He would wait for Cui Lan to come to his door and call his concubine's daughter, who was not doted on much, home. He would let Cui Lan personally smash her head and find Imperial Physician Cui to diagnose her. Imperial Physician Cui said that Muzi had to be used to save her, and the Yan family happened to have such a Muzi that they wanted to give to the Cui family. Imperial Physician Cui had no other choice. It was Cui Lan who smashed the person. Could it be that he wanted his daughter to become a murderer? Therefore, Cui Lan could not take Muzi away. She could only give it to the second daughter of the Yan family. However, Muzi would definitely not be used. Otherwise, why would Yan Yihai spend so much effort? As for how the Yan family operated, how to get Cui Lan to do it, how to ensure that second Miss Yan had to use Muzi to save her life, and how to deceive Imperial Physician Cui, only the Yan family knew. Among them, the most innocent person was probably that second Miss Yan. She had not been back to her parents' house for a long time. She did not expect such a big show to be waiting for her the moment she returned. Gu Yundong sighed secretly and walked home. It was already so late, so she could only go to the shop tomorrow. From the looks of it, she indeed had to think of ways to get this Muzi from the Yan family. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1334. Who said that the shop was rented? Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao did not know that not long after they left, another horse came to the entrance of the Yan residence. A man got off the horse and threw the reins to the servant guarding the door. Then, he rushed into the residence to see second Miss Yan. Shao Qingyuan had yet to return when Gu Yundong and his wife returned home. It was not until half an hour later that Shao Wen hurriedly entered the house. Where's brother Shao? Gu Yundong asked curiously. Shao Wen said, young master can't come back tonight. He was pulled by Imperial Physician Song to talk at the Imperial Hospital. It seems like he can't leave. So, he asked me to come back and tell Madam not to wait. Gu Yundong pursed his lips. Could Song Dajiang understand the ways of the world? Wouldn't he feel guilty for dragging someone else's husband to spend the night? Even so, Gu Yundong still tidied herself up and went to bed early. She wanted to discuss the Yan family with Shao Qingyuan when he returned. There was also the matter of brother Shao looking for his parents. The last information he received from Tao Yan was about the Ho mansion. However, such insider information about noble families was not something that Gu Yundong could find out by sending Tong Shuitao to inquire. Therefore, she wanted to ask Song Dajiang or Qin Wenjing for help. Now, she had to open the shop first. Thus, early the next morning, Gu Yundong still brought Tong Shuitao to the shop. The shop Nie Shuang bought was not far from Hatai Alley. It was in a relatively prosperous area and was said to be very big. Gu Yundong followed the address and was very satisfied with the streets she passed. Not bad. This area did not look cheap. The families living nearby were all rich. It was obvious that they had money and time. It was indeed a suitable place to open a milk tea shop. As Gu Yundong thought, she stopped in front of a two-story shop. Miss, this is it. Tong Shuitao also looked at the shop in front of her with bright eyes. The capital was indeed the capital. Even the shop was bigger than the Xuanhe prefectures. They were both 2 stories, but the shop in front of them looked a little taller and much more imposing. Let's go and take a look. The 2 of them walked forward. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, they frowned at the same time. How did the door open? Tong Shuitao asked curiously and stepped out to take a closer look. The 2 doors that opened were indeed from this shop. Yundong thought of what Shuang had said. Maybe the shopkeeper came to clean. She remembered that Shuang had said that she had left a key to this shop for Song, who was still in the capital. She had asked Song to get someone to help clean the shop from time to time, lest too much dust accumulated and the shop became dilapidated. Tong Shuitao nodded. The 2 of them continued forward and walked in through the 2 open doors. However, just as she reached the door, she heard a high-pitched voice coming from inside. How is it? Isn't this shop good? Not only is this place spacious, but there's also a 2nd floor and a courtyard at the back. Most importantly, the location is good. Most of the people coming and going are rich. If you rent this shop and do any business, you definitely won't lose out. His voice was a little rough, but the meaning behind his words made Yundong frown. Rent? You want to rent this shop? Who said you could rent it, and who agreed? Miss, what's going on? Why do I feel that something is wrong? Yundong pursed her lips and took out the note Shuang had written for her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1335. Do you have the deeds? 68, Jinlan Street. Not a word wrong. Yundong kept the note and strode in with Tong Shuitao. As soon as she entered, she saw a woman in her 40s talking. You have to consider it carefully. My shop is very popular. Many people come to see it. It's now or never. As she spoke, she happened to see Yundong and Tong Shuitao enter. Her eyes immediately lit up and she hurriedly walked over to ask, You're also here to look at the shop, right? Come, let me introduce you. Yundong narrowed her eyes and sized her up for a while. She had thought that she was a broker, but now, the woman looked like a servant from a rich family. Could it be Song's idea? He wanted to rent out this shop? She ignored the old woman and looked at the other 2 people standing in the shop. The man and woman seemed to be husband and wife. Their eyes were shining as they looked at the shop, but they looked a little hesitant. They were trying their best to consider. However, when they saw Yundong and Tong Shuitao, their conflicted expressions changed. They immediately came over and pulled the old woman over. Mother Chen, we took a liking to this shop first. How can you rent it to someone else? Mother Chen immediately smiled happily. I already said that many people came to look at my shop. Then, did you take a fancy to this shop? All right, let's sign the lease now. Give me half a year's rent and deposit. At the mention of silver, the couple hesitated again and said softly, But the rent is too expensive. It's 30 taels a month and we have to pay for half a year. A trace of annoyance and disdain flashed across Mother Chen's eyes, but she still smiled. You can't say that. If you do business on this street, it's not difficult to earn more than 100 taels a month. These dozens of taels of silver are nothing to you. You'll get back your capital very quickly. Seeing that they were still hesitating, Mother Chen immediately looked at Yundong. Madam, what do you think of this shop? You definitely won't lose out if you rent it. Yundong glanced at her and asked, Does this shop belong to your family? Mother Chen was stunned. Her eyes were evasive for a moment, but she quickly calmed down. Isn't that obvious? If it's not my master's, would I take it out to rent? Do you have a deed? Mother Chen frowned and became impatient. What's wrong with you? You didn't say that you wanted to rent it. Why are you asking me for the deed? I naturally have the deed. Otherwise, why do I have the key to this shop? I can't just show you this, right? Mother Chen felt that Yundong was here to cause trouble. She waved her hand and started to chase him away. All right. You have quite a lot of questions. Let me tell you, my shop is very popular. If you don't want to rent it, leave quickly. Don't hinder others here. Yundong avoided Mother Chen's hand and said to the couple, I advise you to see if she has a house deed first. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if the money is wasted. The couple looked at each other. Although they felt that what Gu Yundong said made sense, they were afraid that she also wanted to rent this shop, so she deliberately sowed discord between them and Mother Chen. Hence, they said hesitantly, "We don't think so. Mother Chen is someone close to Lady Yan of the Yan residence. The Yan residence is so big. She wouldn't lie to us about dozens of taels of silver, right? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1336. Find Niet Song Yan residence? Gu Yundong frowned. Was it the Yan residence that she knew? Master Yan Yihai's residence? Gu Yundong asked for confirmation. Mrs. Chen immediately puffed out her chest and raised her eyebrows. "That's right. I'm Mrs. Yan's maid. Our Yan residence is so big. Would we swallow your money?" Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and felt that something was amiss. She looked at Mother Chen and then at the couple. In the end, she said, "It's such a big sum of money. It's best to consider it carefully. If you don't see the deed clearly, you'll regret it in the future." With that, she turned around and left with Tong Shuitao. Mrs. Chen was so angry at Gu Yundong's last sentence that she fell backward. She chased after her for a few steps and pointed at her back with a trembling finger as she scolded. "Where did you come from to find trouble? Little b asterisk tch. Don't leave if you have the ability. Don't let me see you next time, or I'll teach you a lesson." After cursing for a while, Mother Chen spat fiercely and turned to look at the couple again. "Don't listen to her. She just can't bear to see our shop rented out. She must have been sent by our Yan family to sow discord. Come, let's talk about the lease first." However, just as Mother Chen finished speaking, the couple looked at each other and said with a dry smile, "Mother Chen, look, your rent is indeed a little expensive. We don't have that much money on hand. How about this? We'll go back and raise the money first and come back another day?" They thought about it just now and felt that the girl was right. Mother Chen only had the key. Whenever at the mention of the deed, she changed the topic. Something was wrong. Even if she had the reputation of the Yan residence, it was because the Yan residence was too big. If they suffered a loss and went to the Yan residence, they might be chased out as blackmailers. They would not be able to complain at all. Therefore, they should consider it again. When Mother Chen heard their words, her expression suddenly turned exceptionally ugly. "You don't have the money? That's fine. Why don't you pay a month's deposit first? When you gather the rest, you can pay." As soon as she said this, the couple became even more uneasy. They could only smile and say, "That's not appropriate. Well, gather the money first. Well, go now. Well, leave first." Then, the two of them immediately walked out of the shop in a hurry and left without looking back. Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao stood at the entrance of the alley. When they saw the couple come out and Mother Chen spat in the direction of the door, they knew that this deal had not been closed and heaved a sigh of relief. "Miss, what should we do now?" Gu Yundong pursed his lips. "Go find Niet Song first." Initially, Gu Yundong did not want to look for Nye Cong. She had known Niet Song for a long time. She was still considered familiar with him. Previously, when he was still in the Xuanhe prefecture, they had exchanged letters. But after Niet Song came to the capital, Gu Yundong always contacted Nye Shuang. She had not seen Niet Song for a long time. This time, Aunt Ku had given her Niet Song's address so that she could look for him for help if she needed anything. Now, she really had to find him. Gu Yundong immediately brought Tong Shuitao to the Nye family's address. Niet Song seemed to have been promoted as a 7th-grade official in the capital. He had made contributions when he captured the bandit leader during the disaster. Later, he was recommended by Commander Zhao to come to the capital, and worked under a general for a year before he was promoted. In the capital, a rank 7 official position was really very small, completely negligible. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1337. Niet Song's wife. However, the Nye family was not just a merchant family. They also had a background, connections, and money. Although Niet Song was only an insignificant official now, he was very quick-witted. In the future, When he made meritorious contributions and had qualifications, he could still move forward. Therefore, Niet Song's future was visible. Niet Song's residence was still some distance away from the street where Gu Yundong was. Compared to Gu Yundong's three-courtyard house, the Nye residence was much larger. After all, the Nye family was rich and had already bought an estate in the capital. When Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao stood at the entrance of the Nye residence, it was already past noon. She did not have any invitations, so she could only ask the concierge to help pass on a message. The concierge looked at Gu Yundong apologetically and said, "Madam, you should come another day. We have something on today and young master is not seeing guests." No visitors? Gu Yundong considered whether she should leave or not, but she remembered that her house was far from the Nye family and it was not easy to make a trip there. Hence, she insisted on meeting Niet Song first. She took out a letter from her sleeve and handed it over. "Then I'll have to trouble you to pass this letter to your young master. Tell him that we came from his hometown in Xuanhe Prefecture. His family asked me to pass this letter to him and see if he wants to see me." When the gatekeeper heard that she had come from the Xuanhe Prefecture and had brought a letter from the Nye family, the smile on his face instantly became much more sincere and respectful. He immediately nodded and said, "All right, then wait a moment, madam. I'll be back soon." With that, he ran in with the letter. Gu Yundong waited for less than half a quarter before she saw the concierge running over with Niet Song behind him. After being apart for 2 years, Niet Song looked much darker. She still remembered the first time she saw him at the city gate. Although he was wearing the clothes of a soldier, his face was very tender. He did not look like a soldier. Instead, he looked more like a white-faced scholar. At that time, Gu Yundong had felt that he was a gentleman and polite. He did things at a moderate pace and had been nurtured since he was young. But now, he had changed drastically. He walked with large strides and became much leaner and capable. In her eyes, Niet Song was a completely different person. In Niet Song's eyes, Gu Yundong had also changed. He had a deep impression of that thin, small, and exceptionally tenacious little girl back then. He did not expect that after not seeing her for 2 years, not only had she become prettier, but she had also become someone else's wife. Niet Song quickly stood in front of her. "Sister Gu." It was a familiar voice. The barrier between them that they had not seen for 2 years was instantly gone. Gu Yundong suddenly smiled widely. "Young Master Nye, long time no see." Niet Song laughed. "Why are you still calling me young Master Nye?" He shook his head and turned around, but he didn't see Shao Qingyuan. "Where's your husband?" "He had something to do, so I came alone." Niet Song did not probe further. He quickly moved half of his body aside. "Come in first. Let's talk inside." Gu Yundong led Tong Shuitao inside. The Nye residence was really big. It was a large courtyard with many servants. Along the way, many people stared at them, as if they were very curious about the woman who had been personally led in by the young master. Gu Yundong keenly saw a servant girl rushing to the backyard. She recalled that Niet Song was now a married man and immediately asked, "I haven't seen your wife yet. Should I meet her first?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1338. Second Miss Yen. Gu Yundong thought that Niet Song would agree readily, but he did not expect him to frown when he heard this. After hesitating for a moment he said, "You should meet her, but..." He paused and sighed. "It's just that she's sick. She's resting in the backyard now." "All the more reason for me to go over and take a look." Niet Song nodded. "All right, I'll bring you there." As he spoke, he led Gu Yundong to the backyard. Soon, they stopped in front of a courtyard called Anha Garden. Gu Yundong immediately saw the servant girl who had run away earlier. She was standing in the courtyard with her head slightly lowered. The two of them entered the courtyard. Gu Yundong stood in the central room while Niet Song walked in first. A servant served tea to Gu Yundong, so she sat outside and waited slowly. Occasionally, low voices could be heard coming from the inner room. It should be Niet Song telling his wife her identity. After a while, Niet Song came out. "Sister Gu, come in." With that, he led her into the inner room. There was still the smell of medicine in the room. It seemed that Niet Song was right. His wife was indeed sick. Gu Yundong turned around and saw that a woman had already been helped up. Her forehead was wrapped in gauze and she was leaning against the headboard. She looked over carefully with hazy eyes. Gu Yundong was stunned when she saw her face clearly. Wasn't this the second daughter of the Yen family? Yesterday, when the second daughter of the Yen family alighted from the carriage, although she had only caught a glimpse of her, Gu Yundong was very sure that she was not mistaken. She then looked at the gauze on her forehead and thought of the news that Cui Lan had smashed second Miss Yan's head yesterday. Gu Yundong was speechless. Sister Gu, what's wrong? Is there anything wrong with me? A low voice sounded beside her ear. Gu Yundong suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly shook her head. No, there's nothing wrong. She smiled. It's just that it's my first time seeing sister-in-law Nye, and I was distracted for a moment. Sister-in-law is very beautiful. Xianxia immediately lowered her head shyly and whispered, I'm very ugly like this. Sister Gu is the beauty here. As she spoke, she quickly pointed. Sister Gu, sit. I am not feeling well. I can't treat you well. I'm really sorry. Gu Yundong smiled. I was the one who came uninvited and disturbed your recuperation. I'm the one who should say sorry. Nye Tsong smiled and interrupted their conversation. All right, you don't have to be so polite anymore. It's weird to hear. He turned to Xianxia and said, Rest well first. Sister Gu just came to the capital. I have something to talk to her about. When you're better, you can ask her out to admire the flowers. Okay. Xianxia agreed. Then, the maidservant beside her helped her lie down again. When Gu Yundong and Nye Tsong walked out of the inner room, she opened her eyes again and looked at their backs. Nye Tsong led Gu Yundong to the reception pavilion and got someone to serve tea. He smiled and said, I've read Aunt's letter. Are you going to stay in the capital for a long time? Have you found a house? I have many courtyards here. Actually. Gu Yundong knew what he was thinking and quickly interrupted him. We've already bought a house. It's over at Hatai Lane. Hatai Alley. That's not close. Gu Yundong nodded. It's a little far, but the house over there is suitable. By the way, can I ask if sister-in-law's forehead was smashed by Cui Lan? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1339. By Muzi is still here. Nye Tsong was stunned. At the mention of this, a trace of disgust flashed across his eyes. However, he quickly asked in surprise, How did you know that Miss Cui was the one who smashed her? Because I was outside the Yen residence yesterday and saw Cui Lan enter with my own eyes. I also saw sister-in-law enter the Yen residence. Later on, there were rumors that Cui Lan and sister-in-law had an argument. Gu Yundong took a sip of tea and said slowly. Nye Tsong had an I see expression on his face, but he quickly realized that something was wrong. You know Cui Lan? And you stayed outside the Yen residence for an entire day? Why do I feel like you were spying on the Yen residence? Gu Yundong shook his head and laughed. Nye Tsong was still the same Nye Cong. Moreover, after 2 years of training, he seemed to have become even sharper. She did not hide it and said directly, I do know Cui Lan, and am also keeping an eye on the Yen residence. How come? You know that my mother's head was once injured. That's why she's like a child now. Imperial physician Song said that if we want to cure her, we need a very precious and rare medicine. That medicine is by Muzi. For the past 2 years, I've been looking for by Muzi. Later, I learned from Cui Lan that the Yen residence has such a medicine. By Muzi? Nye Tsong frowned, and his expression immediately became strange. After a long while he sighed and said, By Muzi, was used to save my wife yesterday. The Yen residence is also gone. No. Gu Yundong interrupted Nye Cong. By Muzi should still be in Yen Yihai's hands right now. He's keeping it well. Nye Tsong looked puzzled. No. Yesterday, after I found out that my wife was injured, I immediately went to the Yen residence and saw the medicine the doctor gave my wife with my own eyes. Then are you sure that it's by Muzi? Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and asked, Do you know that there's a medicine in this world that's very similar to by Muzi? Do you know by Muzi? This question rendered Nye Tsong speechless. He was not a doctor, so it was naturally impossible for him to understand by Muzi. It was only now that he learned from Gu Yundong that this medicine was so precious. Nye Tsong felt that something was amiss. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table. After a long while he said, "What do you know? How much do you know about Bai Muzi and the Yen residents? Tell me everything." "Before I tell you that, can I ask you something else?" Gu Yundong suddenly looked at him curiously. This expression made Nye Tsong, who was prepared to accept a huge truth, choke. The seriousness from before disappeared. He asked helplessly, "What is it? How did you and sister-in-law become husband and wife?" Gu Yundong's eyes were obviously filled with gossip. The corners of Nye Tsong's mouth twitched. He didn't look like he wanted to say anything. "Aunt Ku didn't tell you?" Gu Yundong shook her head. "After she went back, she only mentioned to me that you were married." At that time she was puzzled. Why didn't Nye Tsong return to the Xuanhe prefecture after getting married? Moreover, it seemed that the Nye family was not very satisfied with this marriage. Otherwise, why would Aunt Ku, Madame Nye, and Nye Shuang be the only ones who came to the capital? Old Master Nye had never come. Nye Tsong felt uncomfortable under her gaze. He couldn't bring himself to say such a private matter. But Gu Yundong looked as if she would not say anything unless he confessed. It was really frustrating. "Forget it." Nye Tsong heaved a sigh of relief and began to talk about his relationship with Xianxia. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1340. Nye Tsong and Xianxia. Nye Tsong and Xianxia met by accident. Xianxia's life in the Yen family was very difficult. She was the very good-looking daughter of an unloved concubine. Naturally, she would be bullied by others. Moreover, Xianxia had always favored boys over girls. He was ambitious and had never cared about the matters in the backyard. Lady Yen was a shrew. In the capital, there were no in-laws to suppress her, and no sisters-in-law to keep an eye on her. That backyard was her say. If she wanted to torture the concubine, she would torture the concubine. If she wanted to treat the daughter of a concubine badly, she would treat the daughter of a concubine badly. As for Xianxia, she was born in the same year as Miss Yen. Mrs. Yen disliked her even more. Therefore, Xianxia had been suppressed since she was young. Her personality had become abnormally weak, and she seemed to be very careful and did not dare to speak loudly to anyone. When Nye Tsong first met her, Xianxia was being bullied by Miss Yenling. Nye Tsong couldn't stand it anymore and secretly got someone to help her out. However, deep down, Nye Tsong looked down on Xianxia. He felt that she was too weak. When faced with trouble, she would retreat and endure as much as she could, as if she had no bottom line at all. Besides, she was good-looking. She would probably die without knowing. After that incident, Nye Tsong threw Xianxia to the back of his mind. However, Nye Tsong soon knew where Xianxia's bottom line was. At her mother's place, Xianxia had never retaliated when she was bullied. However, when her mother was bullied, even though she was afraid and trembled all over, she still dared to resist. At that time, Nye Tsong admired her a little. However, the place where he really interacted with Xianxia was at the Yen family. At that time, Nye Tsong was invited by Master Yen to the Yen residence as a guest. After he went, he found out that Master Yen had taken a fancy to him and wanted to betroth his legitimate daughter, Yen Ling, to him. Master Yen knew Nye Tsong's identity. He was the young master of the Nye family in Xuanhe prefecture. The Nye family and the Yen family also had business dealings. Now that Nye Tsong had become a 7th-grade official and had a superior to promote him, he would definitely be successful in the future. Furthermore, Nye Tsong himself was elegant and handsome. Yen Ling had taken a fancy to him after meeting him once. However, Nye Tsong did not have a good impression of Yen Ling, so he naturally rejected Master Yen tactfully. Xianxia didn't say anything on the spot. He just smiled and changed the topic, pretending that he hadn't said anything. Although Nye Tsong was smart, he still lacked some experience in the face of an old fox like Xianxia who had been in the business world for many years. He had been set up. The Yen family wanted to catch him in bed with Yen Ling and make them a couple. When Gu Yundong heard this, she stopped drinking her tea. She had probably guessed it. In the end, you and Xianxia were caught? Yes. Nye Tsong did not expect the Yen family to be so impolite. Although they were a merchant family, They had to follow the etiquette and rules. However, the Yen family did not care at all. He really wanted to vomit blood from anger when they did such a thing that damaged their reputation. He was indignant at that time and thought of a way to escape. In the end, he accidentally entered Yanya's courtyard. In the end, he and Yanya were seen by everyone. The other party was Yanya, but Nyetsong heaved a sigh of relief. He pitied Yanya in his heart. This pity made him not reject marrying Yanya. If she was weak, so be it. He would spend more effort to protect her or ask the nanny to help her. It was just that getting married to a family like the Yen family made him a little disgusted. However, he had no choice. The matter was settled just like that. To Yen Hai, although the target had changed from a legitimate daughter to a concubine's daughter, he had achieved his goal of marrying a daughter to Nye Cong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1341. Raised Astray. However, to Mrs. Yen and Yen Ling, this was cutting their hearts. They had put in so much effort to design these things, but in the end, it all benefited that little b*tch Yenya. Lady Yen hated Yenya to the core and even wanted to kill her before she got married. Fortunately, Nyetsong had also thought of this. He sent the nanny who had followed him to the capital to take care of his daily life to the Yen residence. He said that the Nye residence had many rules and asked the nanny to teach Yenya first so that she would not make a mistake in the future. Otherwise, if word got out, the Yen residence would lose face. Yen Hai thought of Yenya's unintelligent and timid personality and felt that it made sense, so he agreed. Lady Yen and Yen Ling tried several times, but the nanny caught evidence and brought it to Yen Hai. Yen Hai was furious. He wanted to marry into the Nye family, not become enemies. Yenya was already Nyetsong's fiancée. If she was killed in the Yen residence and the Nye residence's nanny found out, what was the point of joining the two families? Lady Yen and Yen Ling were grounded until Yenya got married. Nyetsong also wrote a letter and sent it to the Nye family of the Xuanhe prefecture. The Nye family was very dissatisfied that he wanted to marry a concubine's daughter who was not favored in a merchant family. It was fine, as the Nye family was not very noble either. However, this concubine's daughter's personality was completely useless. How could she be the future mistress of the Nye family? How could she raise the future descendants of the Nye family and help Nyetsong in the future? In their opinion, this kind of personality could only be used as a concubine or the wife of a small family. As the main wife, she should at least be able to hold her head high. Old Master Nye flew into a rage. He was very disappointed that Nyetsong could not even see through such a small trap. Therefore, only Madame Nye, Nye Shuang, and the others went to the capital to resolve this matter and participate in the wedding. Yenya hadn't even seen her father-in-law yet. She felt even more uneasy. Thankfully, Nyetsong treated her well. After being taught by the nanny, she finally changed a little. However, how could a personality that had been nurtured for more than 10 years change so much overnight? Yundong sighed after hearing this. It seemed that some of what she had heard in the tea shop must have been spread by Madame Yen on purpose. She had also seen Yenya just now. That woman was indeed a coward. Nyetsong should have told her his identity. In the eyes of outsiders, Yundong was just a farmer's daughter-in-law. The second daughter of the Yen family in the capital actually didn't dare to speak loudly in front of her. However, Yundong could not say anything. It was not Yenya's fault that she had become like this. It was obvious that Mrs. Yen had deliberately raised her astray. A native family had a huge impact on a person's personality. It was already not easy for her to muster the courage to protect her mother. Now, can you tell me why you're watching the Yen residence? After talking about his past with Yenya, Nyetsong was still a little embarrassed. He touched his nose and coughed lightly. He quickly changed the topic and asked about serious matters. Didn't I tell you? It's 4 by Muzi. Yundong took a sip of tea and said with a smile. Knowing Nyetsong's attitude towards the Yen residence, Yundong was in a good mood. Nyetsong frowned. How did you know that the Yen residence had by Muzi? I didn't even know about this. Chui Lan told me. Yundong briefly explained that she had met Chui Lan on the ship, but Chui Lan had taken a fancy to her man and used by Muzi to threaten her to leave Shao Qingyuan. In the end, she was almost killed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1342. Ill help you. When Nye Tsong heard this, he did not say anything for a long time. After a long while, the corners of his mouth twitched. You hung Chui Lan over the river for half a day? Forced her to tell you? Gu Yundong rolled her eyes. Is that the main point? And you have to understand that she attacked me first. Do you want me to pretend that nothing happened? Not really. I just realized that you seem to be especially good at turning passive into active. Especially when someone wanted to set her up, she used them in the end. I'll take that as a compliment. Nye Tsong was speechless. He shook his head to get rid of the messy thoughts in his mind and began to think about Bai Muzi. According to what you said, Bai Muzi is precious, and my father-in-law and uncle don't have a good relationship, so he can't bear to help him repay the favor. He can't bear to give it to the Chui family, so he naturally can't bear to give it to Xianxia. So, the more Nye Tsong thought about it, the uglier his expression became. He suddenly stood up and slammed the table. He's clearly using Xianxia to force the Chui family to give up on Bai Muzi. The Yan family didn't suffer any losses, and Chui Lan didn't suffer any losses. However, only my wife was innocently implicated. Not only was her head smashed, but she also had to watch the Yan family put on a show of deep father-daughter love for us and blame everything on us. It's simply preposterous. Bastard. No wonder after Imperial physician Chui diagnosed her, they sent him away on the grounds that Miss Chui was the culprit. They found another doctor for Xianxia. They were afraid that Dr. Chui would find out that Bai Muzi was not needed to treat her. Nye Tsong was furious. He lifted his leg and kicked over a stool at the side. The people outside the door heard a crisp sound and could not help but look inside. They saw the young master's ashen face and sharp eyes. All of them immediately looked at Gu Yundong worriedly, thinking that she had made the young master lose his temper. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong was calmly drinking tea. Instead, she looked very relaxed and was not affected by his anger at all. After a long time, she waved her hand for Nye Tsong to sit down. All right, it's useless to lose your temper now. We have to consider this matter at length. Anyway, we can't let your wife suffer, right? Nye Tsong sat down and drank 2 mouthfuls of tea before gradually calming down. He glanced at Gu Yundong. You want Bai Muzi? Yeah. I'll help you. Pfft. Cough cough. Gu Yundong choked on her tea. Of course, she hoped that Nye Tsong would help her. She had thought of a lot of words to convince him, but before she could say a word, he took the initiative to mention it. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Are you really going to help me? Of course. The Yan residence really thinks him a pushover. It's fine if they bullied Xianxia in the past, but at that time, she was the daughter of the Yan residence. I couldn't do anything about it. Now, she's already my wife and the young madam of the Nye residence. How dare they brazenly find someone to smash her head? Do they think they can touch our Nye residence just because they want to? Nye Tsong was really disgusted by the Yan family's actions. The problem was that they even pushed the problem onto him. It was said that Xianxia's inappropriate words had angered Chui Lan, causing Chui Lan to hit her hard and tell her not to find trouble with the Chui residents. All right. He would not cause trouble for the Chui residents. He would seek revenge from the Yan residents. Gu Yundong asked him, how do you plan to help? Nye Tsong thought for a moment. We have to consider this matter at length. He hadn't thought of it yet. Gu Yundong said, actually, I have something else to ask you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1343. Going too far, go ahead. Nye Tsong knew that Gu Yundong had just found out that his wife was the second daughter of the Yan family. There must be something else going on. Gu Yundong pursed her lips. You know, Auntie Dai, Nye Shuang, and I opened a milk tea shop in Xuanhe Prefecture. The last time Nye Shuang came to the capital, she bought a shop in the capital and planned to use it to open a milk tea shop. Yes, that's true. I know where the shop is. I'll bring you to take a look later. I've been there, Gu Yundong said. Just now, I went to look at the shop according to the address Nye Shuang gave me, but I realized that the door of the shop was open. An old woman called Mother Chen claimed to be Mrs. Yan's servant. She was introducing the shop to someone. She said that she wanted to rent the shop out for 30 taels a month. What did you say? Yundong suddenly stood up, a look of astonishment on his face. Yundong asked, the key to the shop. The key to the shop. I asked Xianxia to keep it. As expected, Yundong sighed. It seemed that the key had either been coaxed away by Mrs. Yen or taken away under threat. Previously, she did not understand. But now, Yundong understood what Mrs. Yen was thinking. That shop was empty anyway. If she rented it to someone else, she could earn some rent. How could that not do? It didn't matter even if Yundong found out later. Yundong could be considered her son-in-law anyway. Could he slap her face in public? Men all cared about their face. It was just an empty shop. It wasn't like the Nye family didn't have money. They could just buy another one later. Perhaps this shop would become hers as she rented it. They're going too far. Yundong really didn't expect so many things to happen in one day. He turned around. I'll go ask Xianxia. Yundong was stunned and quickly pulled him back. She's still injured and timid. If you go over so angrily, she'll think that you're going to denounce her. Won't she be even more afraid in the future? If the couple's relationship was damaged, wouldn't she be the culprit? Yundong clenched his fists tightly. When he thought of Xianxia's personality, he instantly felt discouraged. He sat back down and rubbed his temples. Why did so many things happen just after returning to the Yen residence? He could not stop her in time. So what should we do? Yundong thought for a moment. I'll ask. What's the difference? Speaking of which, he was Xianxia's husband. No matter what, Yundong was still a stranger, right? Yundong could not be bothered with him. She stood up, cleaned her clothes, and went back to on her garden. As expected, Xianxia did not sleep. Yundong guessed that she would not be able to sleep at this juncture. When she saw Yundong coming over, she quickly got up again. Yundong immediately stopped her. Xianxia turned her head, but she did not see Cong. She was at a loss. She had a feeling that something bad had happened. Yundong secretly exhaled and squeezed out a smile. Her voice became gentler. Sister-in-law, I just found out that you suffered a lot. Your head was smashed by someone. It looks like you bled a lot. How is it? Does it still hurt? To be honest, my husband is also a doctor. He even taught me how to relieve pain. Do you want me to take a look at you? Xianxia quickly said, No need, no need. It doesn't hurt. It's just a small injury. It only hurt when I applied the medicine yesterday. It's fine now. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1344. A different version, that's good. When sister-in-law is in pain, you must not hold it in. You must use medicine in time when there are injuries. The more you hold it in, the worse it will be. My husband told me that nothing is more important than your health. Xianxia nodded and said softly, Sister Gu and my husband are so close. You and Brother Nye are not bad either. I think he's very concerned about your injuries. Xianxia was a little embarrassed, but after talking to Yundong about these topics that she had never mentioned to anyone before, she unknowingly relaxed and the topics gradually increased. Yundong chatted with her for a while before guiding her to talk about the injury on her head and then Cui Lan. Yundong found it strange. What did you say? How dare Cui Lan hit you so hard? Xianxia lowered her eyes. Then, Yundong heard a different version from Xianxia. Cui Lan was indeed talking to Xianxia alone in the backyard. Xianxia only said that she was married and asked Cui Lan to visit her house when she was free. Xianxia had the courage to say those polite words. Unexpectedly, Cui Lan, who was standing behind her, suddenly reached out and pushed her forward. Xianxia's head hit the stone table. Therefore, she wasn't hit by a rock at all, but knocked. For some reason it was completely different outside. Of course, Cui Lan firmly denied that she had done it on purpose. She said that for some reason, her foot slipped. She had wanted to pull Xianxia to regain balance with her help, but she did not expect to push her back. But these words were not convincing at all. Moreover, even if what she said was true, it was true that Xianxia was injured from her push. Yundong's lips curled up mockingly. So that was how it was. She found it strange. Xianxia and Cui Lan did not have any deep hatred. They did not know each other in the past. How could Cui Lan be so ruthless to Xianxia just because of a few words? However, the Yan family blamed her for saying those words in front of Xianxia. Cui Lan had yet to get married, so she must have been provoked by her. It was fine if Xianxia got married herself, but she even flaunted in front of Cui Lan. All of this was Xianxia's fault. Xianxia was actually convinced just like that. Yundong could not help but roll her eyes. This woman was lucky that she had met Nietsong, or she could be easily killed. You were unconscious at that time? Were you conscious when Imperial Physician Cui came? Naturally, she wasn't awake. When Xianxia woke up, Nietsong was already here. The wound on her head had been bandaged. She didn't even know that Imperial Physician Cui had come to take her pulse. But then I fell asleep again. When I was half asleep, I heard someone talking outside the bed. Mrs. Yen and Yen Ling were the ones who spoke. The two of them were muttering over there, saying that Yen Yihai was biased and actually let her use such a precious by Muzi. In order to save her life, she did not even listen to the old master. The medicine had clearly been promised to be Yen Ling's dowry. Now that the priceless dowry was gone, Yen Ling had suffered a huge loss. Yen Yihai even reprimanded the mother and daughter, saying that Xianxia was his daughter after all. Although he didn't dote on her in the past, she was still his biological daughter. How could he watch her die? Not to mention by Muzi, even if it was something even more precious, as a father, he would do everything he could to find it. These words made Xianxia feel complicated. She felt guilty, touched, and uneasy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible.